Chapter 920. The destruction of her heart also means that this person has come to an end, and her life has come to an end. Put ong. Baigu Mam, who was emptied, fell to the ground. Her eyes were unwilling, and she looked blankly at Dustless, who was looking down at her. Baigu Mam wanted to stand up and fight, but she was powerless. She knew that her floating life was about to be completely stabilized. You guy, Baigu Mam's eyes widened, and she used the last remaining time to recall the battle just now. About a few hours had passed, but she had been in a state of complete defeat, and she had been suppressed and beaten violently. This guy is obviously a god in human clothes. I can't beat him at all. Baigu Mam muttered to herself. Although her tone was full of unwillingness, she couldn't help but be convinced. The gap between her and Dustless was so big, like a giant and a baby in swaddling clothes. There was no extra strength to resist. Is this a human? Not at all. It is obviously a god in human skin sent by God to go against her. This is simply cheating. The two are completely different, and there is no comparison at all. Just now it was not so much a battle, it was better to say that Dustless has been playing with her to pass the boring time. However, listening to what you mean, it seems that you want to make my body into a puppet, and use me to deter the group of pirates in the New World. It's really a despicable means. Baigu Mamu used the last of her strength to say in a trembling voice. There was a touch of carefreeness in her words. Even if I die, I will not let you succeed. After that, Baigu Mam overflowed a lot of green acid and corroded her body. Seeing this, Dustless frowned slightly, and after thinking for a while, he stretched his brows again. Don't be mistaken, although I care about your body, I don't have to get it. Glancing at Baigu Mam, Dustless felt a little sleepy, and then sat on a clean stone casually, looking at her who was gradually corroded by acid, and his tone was unusually cold. You are just a harmless pawn. It is good if you can be used. If you can't be used, there is no harm in it. Impossible. Baigu's mom immediately denied Dustless's statement loudly and said affirmatively, you must want to use my reputation and the people's scruples about the four emperors to achieve some unknown purpose. Although it was just a simple and baseless conjecture, Baigu Mamu was very sure that no matter what the reason was, Dustless taking her body was definitely not a good thing. Don't think too highly of yourself. I'll repeat myself one last time. You're just a harmless chess piece. Even that Doflamingo guy is more useful than you. In short, you're just a dispensable pawn, Dustless mocked coldly. This fat idiot really overestimated himself. Ayo ayo ayo, a heaven-shaking roar suddenly sounded out from the distance. Looking up, Zhao Fu saw a few 10,000-meter-long sea kings roaring, giving off boundless killing intent. What happened? Dustless frowned when he noticed the sea king's abnormality. The first person he thought of was Shirahoshi. Good chance, go to hell. Seeing that Dustless was distracted, Baigu's mom's eyes lit up. Her body stood up strangely. Her body was full of acid, and it pressed on Dustless like a mountain. Reckless thing. Noticing that the sky suddenly turned dark, Dustless's face was full of hostility. He looked up at Baigu's mom's body that was about to fall, and he immediately condensed an ugly black iron rod in his hand. Whoosh! The iron rod hit Baigu's mom's abdomen. Her body collapsed in an instant and disappeared strangely. She would definitely die if she was hit by the black rod supported by the yin-yang escape. After a few seconds, Dustless walked toward the castle where Shirahoshi and Princess Otoji were. At this moment, the castle. No, perhaps it could not be called a castle anymore. It was surrounded by ruins. There were fragments everywhere. The previous castle had disappeared. Jia 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 jia. There is really such an incredible ability in the world. It seems that Caribou Kid did not lie to me, but this kind of top-secret information can't be known to outsiders. I will kill that kid when I go back. Doflamingo smiled gloomily and proudly. He looked at Shirahoshi and the giant sea king behind her. His eyes were full of fanaticism. He seemed to have seen the future of the king of the world. His eyes were shining. There was also a graceful woman beside him. She had bright and dazzling golden hair. Her facial features were perfect. Her every move exuded a mature charm. She was very charming. The only pitiful thing was that at this moment, there were 2 lines of tears in the beautiful woman's crystal eyes. Behind her, there were many subordinates of Flamingo. Mother. Looking at Princess Otoji, who was captured as a hostage, Shirahoshi's nose was sour. She looked anxious and painful. Her crying appearance was particularly pitiful. There were also many flamingo who were used to having a heart of stone. In the face of such a touching scene, not only did he not blame himself, but there was a hideous smile at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 921. It's normal for Doflamingo to be so cold. He was originally abnormal. He was ruthlessly treated in his childhood, which caused his whole life values to be distorted, so it's normal for him to be crazy. Because his whole life has been like this. Please let go of my mother, or I will not be polite to you. The white and tender lotus arm wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes, and Shirahoshi's eyes fell on Doflamingo, showing a rare touch of awe. The large sea king floating behind her also swam around, opening its bloody mouth, which was almost 1,000 meters long, and could even swallow the whole world, which made the Don Quixote family cadre frightened. This level of sea king, 1 or 2, or even dozens of them can be dealt with, but when this number multiplies, it becomes thousands of them. Even if Doflamingo followed suit, facing the siege of thousands of sea king, Admiral, Yonko, 4 emperors, or something will definitely die. Of course, Doflamingo's face is still full of morbid excitement. Looking across the layers of time and space, Doflamingo has seen him standing at the end of the sky, arrogant. Even the nightmarish enemy Dustless also bowed his head. Thinking about it, his heart jumped, looking at Shirahoshi, who was close at hand. He never felt that the position of the king of the world was so close to him. What pirate king, marine admiral is simply weak? Hey! It's okay to let her go, but you... His gaze circled around Shirahoshi as Doflamingo continued to bluff. Of course I can let your mother go, but in exchange, you have to immediately leave this place and serve me. Doflamingo smiled sinisterly, and there was a cunning light in the depths of his eyes. Of course, he will not let go of Princess Otoheim. This is the only existence that can restrain Shirahoshi at present. Don't listen to this man's nonsense, he is lying to you. The real purpose is actually you. Leave here quickly, your father will protect you. Princess Otoheim is also a veteran, and she naturally understands what Doflamingo wants, and she hurriedly shouted at Shirahoshi. You can leave, but... Doflamingo was calm, took out a gun from his arms, and pointed the dark muzzle at Princess Otoheim's head. If you run, your mother will be killed. Seeing this, Shirahoshi's intention to leave immediately disappeared. She looked nervously at Doflamingo, looking pitiful, and finally gave up the idea of leaving. Hey, emotional creatures are really the best to use, what a group of idiots. Doflamingo looked up to the sky and laughed unscrupulously. He saw Shirahoshi's weakness, so he used Princess Otoheim as a breakthrough point to threaten Shirahoshi. The current scene was just as he had imagined. Shirahoshi had indeed chosen to resign herself to death. By the way, Doflamingo's smile froze. If he remembered correctly, Princess Audrey's husband should be King Neptune, but that guy seemed to have died many years ago. The father mentioned just now was obviously not Neptune. Who is your father? Tell me, or I will kill Shirahoshi. He's Shirahoshi, 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 Shirahoshi. Shirahoshi, 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 I haven't seen you for a while. Your courage has grown a lot, Doflamingo, a ghostly voice suddenly entered his ears. Doflamingo instinctively broke out in goosebumps. This frivolous and lazy voice that looked down on all living things, he was very familiar with it. Not only was it familiar, but there was also a bone-deep fear. Fear of that man seemed to be an instinct, and Doflamingo himself couldn't control it. Shirahoshi, a figure appeared beside her, dustless. Father. Seeing Dustless appear, Shirahoshi cried tears of joy, afraid that he would disappear again, so she couldn't wait to hold him up, and immediately buried him in the Jade Maiden Peak. Let go of me, Shirahoshi. Dustless said with a headache. Looking at Princess Odoheim, who was taken hostage by Doflamingo, Dustless gave her a comforting look, indicating that she didn't need to worry. What else do you have to explain, Doflamingo? Dustless asked indifferently as his emotionless eyes fell on Doflamingo. I have nothing to explain, as you can see. Shirahoshi didn't know why, perhaps it was because of his habit of being a lackey, but every time Dustless spoke, the first thought that came to his mind was how to flatter. Just thinking about it made Doflamingo angry. After being a lackey for more than 10 years, obeying Dustless had become a habit. Every time he heard Dustless's voice, he would reflexively reveal a flattering expression. That's right. Between you and me, there is indeed nothing worth saying. Perhaps I should ask directly, you captured my woman, how do you want to die? Dustless's indifferent face disappeared, and his face was as cold as a blade. Staring at his expression, there was a faint stinging pain in his eyes. Gulp, the members of the Don Quixote pirates grunted unnaturally and looked at Dustless with fear. After Whitebeard was annihilated by him, the title of the strongest man in the world fell on him. Dustless's bottomless strength made all creatures living under the sea, land, and air feel fear. Chapter 922. Compared with his subordinates whose souls were cold, Doflamingo was as calm as a mountain. I warn you, this guy caught our weakness, he will never let us go. There is only one way to betray him, death. Fearing that this group of family cadres would have some unrealistic ideas, Doflamingo had to raise his voice to warn them, and there was also an undisguised threat. Don't forget, we still have a trump card. Pointing to Princess Odoheim beside him, Doflamingo regained some confidence. The role and benefits of this hostage were absolutely beyond imagination, and her power was even more than a yonko for emperors. After all, yonko for emperors had to kneel when they met Dustless. Only this woman would make him indecisive. The cadre of the Don Quixote family heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. They finally had some confidence. They unanimously leaned toward Princess Odoheim. This was their temporary life-saving chip. Naturally, they had to watch her closely. Want to threaten me? If it were Gorisei, 5 elder stars, they would have used this method. Seeing this, Dustless couldn't help but shake his head, squinting his eyes. This funny strategy was meaningless. Not to mention that Doflamingo didn't dare to kill Princess Odoheim now, he still needed this hostage for the time being. Taking a step back, if her blood splashed on the spot, with Rinnegan's incredible degree, resurrecting her was a trivial matter. Boom! The particles on the ground suddenly became restless, and then strangely floated in the air. Princess Odoheim was the same, the whole world seemed to be floating. The sudden scene made everyone stare at each other, including Princess Odoheim, who was also full of horror. She didn't realize what had happened. Wansho Heaven's Pole. A magnetic voice fell, and the initiator was also exposed. Doflamingo's face was full of anger, and his body was full of killing intent. Now that he and Dustless had a falling out, he naturally wouldn't show mercy. Even if Doflamingo wanted to show mercy, Dustless would definitely ignore him. Staring at the unguarded back of Princess Odoheim, Doflamingo's eyes flashed a ruthless color, and there was a dark evil smile, and immediately dozens of transparent lines popped out of his hand, connecting the limbs of Princess Odoheim. Parasitic thread. Doflamingo's fingers shook slightly. Princess Odoheim's drooping limbs immediately rose up. She waved her fist with a pained expression, smashing it towards Dustless's face. Only those with excellent eyesight could see that Princess Augi's body was being controlled by transparent lines. Bang! He opened his palm and easily caught the incoming fist. This white line that controlled Princess Augi naturally could not escape Dustless's capture. Hee hee. Even the cold-blooded you are unable to do anything to your lover. How laughable. To think that I used to think that you were an invincible and perfect existence. It turns out that you are also immortal. Seeing that Dustless couldn't bear to kill him, Doflamingo said disdainfully, you controlled this woman to attack. You must be helpless too, hee hee. Hearing this, Wuchen didn't even look at Doflamingo. He stared at the sharp white line with contempt on his face. Helpless. How laughable. Don't compare me with a mortal like you. It's easy to crack this line. Under the surprised gaze of the members of the Don Quixote pirates and Doflamingo himself, Dustless's petite right arm touched the parasitic thread connected to Princess Odoheim. Amaterasu. The line as hard as iron, as if it had encountered a deadly natural enemy, touched the black fire that could devour everything, and instantly melted and collapsed. Princess Odoheim's painful expression also recovered. You can't do it, but it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Princess Odoheim was sent to Shirahoshi's hands. Dustless's killing intent was over. You have served me for more than 10 years. Today, I will give you a special discount. Everyone, report to hell together. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with blood-red hostility. He took a big stride forward and crossed the space. Bastard, so fast. Everyone spread out. Doflamingo's expression changed greatly, and his pupils shrank. With just a thought, Dustless arrived as scheduled, and his abnormal speed was beyond what he had ever seen in his life. Shoo shoo shoo. The members of the Don Quixote family heard this and did not hesitate to burst back. In a fight of this level, they would only be a burden if they attacked. Wire saw. An afterimage swayed in the void, followed by an invisible cold light that was sharper than a tachi swept across, cutting iron like mud. It was completely from Doflamingo's fruit ability, and it was very powerful. In the face of such a fierce attack, an insignificant finger was gently raised. Seeing this, Doflamingo's heart was filled with anger. What are you dreaming about? Do you want to use a finger to block my attack? Do you think I am that kind of fish? The corner of his mouth that was flying all over the sky stopped abruptly, and the thinking in Doflamingo's mind was short-circuited. What happened before was like a dream. The white jade finger raised high easily blocked the sharp wire saw and completely stopped Doflamingo's attack. Dustless's expression was slightly lazy, showing a flash of light with a playful tease. Immediately, his thumb gently exerted force, and a crisp sound made everyone stagnate. Bang! The wire saw that could be said to be unparalleled, harder than steel, suddenly broke in two, as fragile as paper. From the beginning to the end, Dustless only used a finger to break the string fruit's ability. Chapter 923. This dreamlike and unreal scene petrified all the Don Quixote cadres. In their hearts, Doflamingo is actually a godlike existence, the invincible strongest captain. Doflamingo's attack was stopped by the enemy with a single finger. The shock in his heart was like a stormy sea, out of control. Many of the Don Quixote cadres even pinched their skin, thinking that this was a dream, but the heart-wrenching pain made them speechless, and they all stared at Doflamingo in disbelief. When a person's faith collapses, this person will also be deeply hit and even unable to recover. The current members of the Don Quixote pirates are no more than this. Doflamingo's attack was blocked by his thumb, and these cadres' eyes were dead. They are rookies, who are not even as good as Doflamingo. What can they do? They are looking for death. Bullet line. The white light like a cannonball whistled out, and its power was no less than that of a bullet from a gun. Boom! However, when it came into contact with Dustless's forehead, the white light was bounced off, and a thumb-sized hole was gouged out of the ground. Shout! A gust of wind blew, and Doflamingo quickly retreated, his brows tightly wrinkled, feeling an abnormal headache, and there was a sense of powerlessness. This is a complete violation of the rules. Whiz! The blazing temperature condensed behind him, and Doflamingo, who was unaware of it, bowed his head in thought. After all, the speed of light has an absolute advantage. Armament hockey hardening. Although it is impossible to capture with the naked eye, observation hockey detects the position of Dustless, and Doflamingo used hockey to defend himself. However, being able to defend does not mean that he can withstand it unscathed. With a cold expression, Dustless was not merciful, and his fist covered with armament hockey mercilessly greeted Doflamingo's head. Poochie! The ugly iron fist blasted Doflamingo, and the ground also pulled out a burst of smoke and dust. Because of the fierce force, Doflamingo vomited blood again and again. Shoo shoo shoo. Dustless did not intend to stop, and dense flashes filled Doflamingo's entire eye socket. Yasekani no Magatama. Doflamingo was shocked to see such an exaggerated attack. He immediately forced his swaying body to stand up. He still had dreams that had yet to be realized. He absolutely could not lie here. I can only use the awakening fruit once. Hesitation flashed through Doflamingo's mind. At such a desperate moment, Doflamingo's strong desire to survive burst forth, driving him to burst forth with even more strength than before. Buzz buzz buzz. The ground throbbed and surged strangely. Several huge lines could be seen. Shield white line. The large lines on the ground rose from the ground and intersected in front of Doflamingo. They were as dense as a spider web, and their neat appearance was enough to defend against all attacks. Clang! 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 The white lines that were as hard as steel let out a crisp roar, and sparks appeared in the blink of an eye. The flashes of light cut the lines into pieces one after another, turning them into powder and falling to the ground. However, these dense lines seemed to have the ability to regenerate. No matter how many lines were cut off by Dustless, more lines would emerge from the ground and reconnect. Under this situation, the Yasekani no Magatama finally failed to break through Doflamingo's defense. Don't underestimate people too much. Doflamingo, who took time to catch his breath, said confidently. Suddenly, there was a chill behind him. Doflamingo was about to turn around when the flashes of light whizzed towards him. There was also a contemptuous taunt. So what if I underestimate you? Lightspeed kick. Without waiting for Doflamingo to react, a ruthless blow tore his body apart. Boom boom boom. In the sand pit dozens of meters away, Doflamingo, who was riddled with holes, was deeply trapped in it and dripping with blood. The most eye-catching thing was that his waist was almost torn apart by the lightspeed kick, showing a serious burn state. Roar! A beast on the verge of desperation was the most dangerous. Doflamingo's throat jumped out with an inhuman roar. Young master! The cadres of the Don Quixote pirates, as if they had discussed it in advance, rushed to Dustless, each showing their magical powers, trying to stop Dustless's advance. All of you trash should just disappear. Not only have you forgotten to be grateful for all these years, you even want to snatch away my ancient weapon and kill your master. Ingrates really can't be fed. All of you deserve to die. The blue sky turned upside down, and countless small whirlpools appeared in the void. Immediately, countless weapons emerged. The people who were pointed at were the cadres of the Don Quixote clan. Fighting to die. I didn't expect this idiot Doflamingo to be so good at training his subordinates. His eyes turned cold, and his hand fell. The divine weapons floating in the air turned into a dense rain of bullets and shot out. Wong Kai Bao. The simple 4 words played a crushing prelude to killing. Even though Doflamingo's subordinates were proficient in armament hockey and could temporarily resist the erosion of the weapons, but with the passage of time and the increase in number, their physical strength was quickly annihilated by this boundless sea of weapons, and they were all riddled with holes and flesh flying everywhere. Doflamingo's pirates, except for Doflamingo, were all killed. Chapter 924. The dense number of treasures of the king is overwhelming, and there are thousands of weapons stored in it. It is unrealistic to resist it with pure flesh. It is like a moth flying into the fire. The members of the Don Quixote pirates were cut into pieces, and the smell of blood was overwhelming. The scene was particularly depressing. In the face of such a cruel scene, Dustless was surprisingly calm. Traitors are not worthy of sympathy, all of this is their own fault. In a sense, Dustless's method is already harmonious and gentle. Some perverted pirates torture traitors, destroy them for 10 months and 8 months, and then kill them. This kind of horrible thing happens from time to time on the Grand Line. Don't show this kind of hateful expression. I told you before, the road is their own choice. I never forced them to be traitors. Aware of the cold eyes that want to perish together, Dustless's eyes turned and fell on Doflamingo, who was like a mad dog. His indifferent eyes looked down at him, and there was a touch of pity and sympathy in his words. All of this is your own fault. You can't blame others. You tried to challenge me with your meager strength. This is what you deserve. It's a pity for your loyal crew. Glancing at the Don Quixote family cadres who were smashed into pieces, Dustless felt quite unworthy for them. Dying for me. That's their blessing, I will naturally avenge them. Even though he has been knocked to the ground, Doflamingo's sharp tongue is still unforgiving. Really, that's a pity, you don't have the ability to do it. Hearing this, Wu Chen sighed softly and expressed deep regret. Then, he walked out slowly. Light floated in his hand, and a big sword with cold light flashed in the blink of an eye. Dustless, holding the Kusanagi sword in his hand, intends to give Doflamingo a fatal blow. A person's life is always accompanied by endless accidents. No one can say that they are absolutely in control of the world. Now, Dustless's unexpected thing happened in an instant. Caw caw caw. The ground next to Doflamingo suddenly burst, and a white figure came out of it, then helped Doflamingo up and looked at Dustless. Dustless's expression changed when he saw this. He glared at the person who had suddenly disturbed the situation and said gloomily, Baizu, what is the meaning of this? Don't forget who created you. The person supporting Doflamingo was Dustless's most loyal subordinate, White Zetsu. Baizu didn't care. He didn't bow and scrape like he used to. He said, Master Dustless, as you can see, you're not wrong. I betrayed you. White Jew said, beaming with joy. He looked like a villain who had achieved his goal. Giving you intelligence and consciousness was indeed a mistake. When he created White Zetsu, Dustless did not take away his intelligence and consciousness. In other words, White Zetsu was like a normal human being. They had their own way of thinking. It's too late to say this now, Master Dustless. White Zetsu shrugged frivolously and immediately cut off Doflamingo's arm. Half of the arm merged with Doflamingo's body, and the latter's body that was full of injuries healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Betrayed you. You forced me to do this. Doflamingo, who was gradually recovering, shouted. People like you can't live in this world. Your existence is a blasphemy to all living creatures. It's not just me, I'm afraid Hawkeye also has the same idea. A person who can never be surpassed, only when he disappears will the world be peaceful. When people have great power, they will be isolated. Now Dustless is in this situation, including White Zetsu, who he created, also left him. Hearing this, the last remaining conscience in Dustless's heart disappeared. Human nature is so ugly. I originally wanted to destroy the world government's rule and establish my dream. Now it seems that my previous idea was a little naive. With a strange smile, Dustless suddenly said loudly, "Since the creation of the world is not successful, then let's just destroy the world. With the infinite Tsukuyomi, we will end this rotten world. The dawn of dawn will lead all humans into a happy dream. Master Dustless, stop dreaming. My purpose is to pull you down from the altar and replace you as the new king of the world. How can I let you use that technique?" Poochie. The white shadow behind him instantly penetrated Dustless's chest and inserted its hand into his heart. Immediately, a mysterious wave of energy surged out. It did not destroy Dustless's body, but unexpectedly gradually merged with it. Yin-yang release, spiritual fusion. His body quickly turned into liquid. White Zetsu's arm had turned into liquid and wanted to merge with Dustless. From the beginning, when Master Dustless created me, I understood that it was impossible to kill you. Thanks to the yin-yang release you gave me, I can replace you directly. You intend to occupy my body. How ironic. This scene is similar to Uchiha Madara and Black Zetsu. Looking at the big white hand on his chest, Dustless said with emotion. Immediately, his eyes were cold, and a strange wave of energy directly evaporated the big hand of White Zetsu. How is it possible? Hurriedly pulling out his arm, White Zetsu looked at Dustless in disbelief and said, "I have planned all of this for several years. It is impossible to fail. Planning for several years. Idiot." The corner of his mouth was full of ridicule and contempt. Dustless said coldly, "The one who created you is me. The one who gave you the yin-yang release is also me. Secondly, I am not Uchiha Madara, and you are not Black Zetsu." Chapter 925. White Zetsu's eyes widened in disbelief, and his pupils widened to the largest extent in his life. "Impossible, how can you ignore that technique?" White Zetsu shook his head, thinking that this was a dream, and he wanted to free himself from the illusion. His expression was quite painful. The plan he had secretly planned for many years was now in vain, and he was deeply hurt. And he had exposed himself. In this world, there is no invincible technique. Turning his head to look at White Zetsu with pity, Dustless looked down at him, shook his head, and explained sympathetically, "A stream is always a stream. Even if he and the sea have the same root, it is impossible to assimilate the sea with his gurgling water." Compared to Dustless, White Zetsu's weak control of the yin-yang escape was not worth mentioning. Wanting to devour his will and take his body for himself was a fool's dream. In short, White Zetsu thought he had a card up his sleeve, but in fact, it was just a joke. It was unrealistic. "What are your last words?" Looking at White Zetsu, who had a mental breakdown, Dustless asked very uninterestedly. It seemed that White Zetsu's last card was not used at all. Last words. What a joke. "I still want to take your body. How can I die in this ghost place?" White Zetsu's expression was ferocious, and his words were full of desire and yearning. He was the same as Doflamingo, and could even hide better than Doflamingo. After being Dustless's lackey for so many years, White Zetsu also wanted to understand what it felt like to step on the heads of the world's common people. The mountains don't move, the water moves. There will be a lot of time in the future. Let's wait and see. The moment the voice fell, White Zetsu's body began to sink. Now he had completely fallen out with Dustless, and naturally could not follow him. "You bastard, you want to abandon me and escape alone." Doflamingo's bewildered voice came, but White Zetsu was expressionless. He treated Doflamingo as air, and did not put him in his eyes at all. He was just a chess piece. Ah, ah, ah. A dog biting another dog. Doflamingo, you don't have to feel sad. Seeing Doflamingo's murderous expression, Dustless patted his chest and gave a thumbs up, assuring, don't worry. Both of you will go to the netherworld to continue your fate. If there is any unresolved hatred, we won't eat it. Now, it's better to let me kill both of you first. You want to kill me? Humph, Dream. White Zoo groaned. He sounded very proud. Then, he sank into the ground and disappeared. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. Do you think that I can't do anything to you? What a failure. I actually created such an idiot. Wu Chen laughed bitterly at himself. His words were full of sarcasm. Kill me if you dare. Bai Zhu, who was deep under the Merman Island, roared furiously. He naturally understood the ridicule behind Wu Chen's words. Hence, he did not back down and mocked back. I will kill that bastard called White Zetsu, but before that, you go to hell first, Louis South. Doflamingo's aura soared, and the hidden potential in his body was also stimulated. He erupted with an absolute power that could topple mountains and overturn seas, and the ground trembled with the rhythm of Doflamingo. The scene was terrifying. You still don't want to give up? Dustless glanced at him with the eye power of Rinnegan. He sighed lightly, and ripples appeared in his eyes. Tomb of Samsara, border prison. Doflamingo continued to accumulate strength, and increased his strength to an unprecedented level. After a while, he opened his mouth and showed a savage smile. Hee hee. This time, I will definitely tear you to shreds. Caw caw caw, the crisp sound of bones cracking broke the dull atmosphere. Looking up, Doflamingo's head had been separated from his body, and the head on the ground had turned into minced meat. This guy is still useful. He was beaten like this by the shadow. Forget it. With a sigh, Dustless used Kamui to devour Doflamingo's body. Immediately, ripples appeared in the void, and a strange spiral-shaped sword appeared in Dustless's hand out of thin air. The moment this strange sword appeared, the surrounding space was dead silent. The strange sword was surrounded by scarlet bloodlight, and it seemed to be reading the data of this world, preparing to destroy it. You think you can escape by hiding in the deep sea? I hate traitors the most, White Zetsu. You still have a long way to go if you want to escape from Guile Sword's capture. Looking around, he saw that the entire Fishman Island was gradually collapsing. It was only a matter of time before it was destroyed. In that case, it was better to let Dustless do it thoroughly. With cold eyes, Dustless immediately began to control Guile Sword with all his strength. Whoosh! The strange spiral sword was like the culprit that destroyed the world. It was surrounded by a desperate and chilling aura, and then it started to rotate. At first, it was just a weak fiery red tornado, and the range was not large, but with Dustless's strength, the Fishman Island had a huge change in the blink of an eye. The fiery red tornado instantly expanded thousands of times, forming a huge fiery red sword storm under the sea. It was like a black hole that swallowed everything around it. The Fishman Island collapsed in an instant, and White Zetsu, who was desperately escaping, was also swept in. Chapter 926. Sensing the wind and waves behind him that wanted to tear him to shreds, White Jew was no longer as arrogant and conceited as before. He used all the strength in his body to escape. He never thought that Dustless still had such a peerlessly terrifying move. Boom boom boom. Deep under the sea, the fiery red tornado continued to expand. The entire Fishman Island was collapsing rapidly. Everything on the island was swallowed by the storm. Would release, descent of the tree world. Sensing that he couldn't pull away from the tornado, White Zetsu clenched his teeth. The chakra in his body surged. His hands quickly formed a seal, and a large forest appeared in the depths of the sea. You actually thought that the descent of the tree world could stop the sharpness of the good separation sword. Are you looking down on me or this guy? Touching the spiral sword in his hand, Dustless muttered to himself. He stared at the forest in the depths of the sea that was stacked up like a city wall. He couldn't help but shake his head. If he wanted to stop the good separation sword, this was far from enough. Pfft. The crimson sword storm continued to expand its range. It almost destroyed the forest formed by the descent of the tree world in an instant. Wait, Zetsu was also swallowed. Oh! The miserable cry was endless. White Zetsu's body was crushed layer by layer. The desperate cry was filled with fear. He wanted to beg Dustless to let him go, but the next second, he disappeared forever with his bones. Of course, the Fishmen Island that disappeared into dust. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. The Fishmen Island was completely wiped out by Dustless's powerful strength from this planet. There was no longer a place called the Fishmen Island in this world. Did you find the thing? At this moment, inside the Dressrosa Palace, Dustless was sitting comfortably on the seat that belonged to Doflamingo. He was taking a nap, and he was humming a leisurely tune from time to time. He was as happy as a god. Inside the room, there were a few white and alluring bodies on the soft bed. Their white skin was faintly discernible under the blankets, and they were indulging in wild and fanciful thoughts. Other than that, Dustless himself was also dressed in pajamas. It was obvious that he had just done something that was not suitable for children. Califa, Hancock, Perona, and Princess Odoheim were rolling on the bed. Princess Odoheim's face was red like a ruby. It wasn't that she was shameless, but Dustless's tough methods were really unreasonable. Sometimes, the more she resisted, the more it would arouse Dustless's interest in hunting. Thus, Princess Aji could only let it be. Robin has deceived the Straw Hats into going to Dressrosa, but they seem to be leaving soon to travel to the next island. She didn't care that her perfect body was exposed in front of Dustless's eyes. Hancock put on her own clothes, regardless of Dustless's wolfish eyes. She was calm. Among the women, Hancock was the one who followed Dustless the longest, so she knew his character well. No matter what she did, she could do it freely. Is the Straw Hats going to travel? No, I think it's over. Since that kid likes to be the Pirate King so much, I'll use the infinite Tsukimi Jutsu to pull him into the dream world and let him be the Pirate King for a lifetime. Really, I'm becoming more and more kind. Dustless's words caused the women to roll their eyes and stare at Dustless angrily. Although they didn't know what the infinite Tsukimi Jutsu was, they knew from Dustless's mouth that this jutsu covered the whole human race. Hearing that Dustless was going to do something to the whole world, the women found it difficult to accept. After all, this was their home for survival. But later, as time passed, their feelings and ties to this world gradually faded. Whether it was Princess Odoheim, Califa, Perona, Hancock, and other women, there was nothing in this world worth remembering. Knock. In the dimly lit room, there was a sudden knock on the door. Dustless bowed his head and looked at Hancock and the other women. They also quickly put on their clothes. Creak. About 10 minutes later, Hancock tidied up her clothes and opened the door with elegant steps. Royce South, Saint M. Caesar Kalang, who ran in, nodded and bowed. He didn't even have the courage to raise his head and look directly at Dustless. Turning to the right, on the left, hidden in the dark space, the emotionless corpse was clearly visible. It was Doflamingo. With the idea of saving resources, the arrogant Doflamingo was also made one of the 6 paths of pain by Dustless. What's the matter? Don't tell me who is bothering you again. Stretching, Dustless's tone was warning. Most of the time, this guy came to him for various problems. Either he was bullied or he had problems with his research. That's not it. Pluton has been completed perfectly and can be dispatched at any time to end the world in front of us. Caesar shook his head like a rattledrum and immediately replied, according to your orders, all of the Netherworld King's cannons have been aimed at Dressrosa. As long as you give the order, we can destroy this island in an instant. Chapter 927. Caesar bent over carefully, raised his eyes, and glanced at Wu Qin. He chose to keep silent. Based on Caesar's cognition, the man in front of him was a temperamental person. If Wu Qin was angered because of his words, it would be a loss if he was killed. Well, you can go back. When I order you to attack Dressrosa, I will use Den Den Mushi to inform you. Rubbing his temples, Wu Qin said drowsily and waved his hand. He didn't care about Caesar's reply and directly asked him to leave. Understood. Caesar nodded and immediately stood up and turned to leave. Master, didn't you say that infinite Tsukuyomi is a one-time ability to destroy the world? The existence of Pluto is already superfluous and completely useless. Hancock tilted her head and wondered. In this world, her relationship with Dustless was the closest. Some unknown secrets, Dustless was happy to tell her. Although infinite Tsukuyomi is the enemy of all creatures, there is an exception to everything. Maybe, there is a fish that I didn't expect to slip through the net. Infinite Tsukuyomi is a world-destroying technique, but it doesn't mean that it is invincible. Maybe there is some strange ability that can take advantage of the infinite Tsukuyomi. After all, Uchiha Sasuke's Kansusunu is a lesson. Although Dustless is very confident in the infinite Tsukuyomi, he has already reached the last step, and it's not wrong to take risks. I'll use this thing to trick all the strong people in the world into going to Dressrosa, then use Hades to bombard Dressrosa, and then use infinite Tsukuyomi to end this world. This is my plan. Dustless had a slightly old and yellow blueprint in his hand, but he could clearly see all kinds of data, and the outline of the whole day was an unprecedented giant ship. It is the design of Pluto. After a few days, Doflamingo, one of the 6 paths under my control, will announce to the world that the prize for the winner of this arena is the ancient weapon, Pluto's design. Speaking of this, Dustless was already murderous. Deceiving the strong people of the world to attack Dressrosa, and then using Pluto to bombard them, and finally the main dish, infinite Tsukuyomi. This is undoubtedly a lot safer. With Pluto's design as the reward, it can attract the major forces of the world, whether it is the Yonko, 4 emperors, or the admirals of the marine headquarters, including the hidden revolutionary army, and even the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will personally come to Dressrosa. When the time came, he would activate the ancient weapon, Pluto, to annihilate all of them. Even if there were the occasional undying fish that escaped the net, there was still infinite Tsukuyomi waiting for them. This way, Dustless would be able to rest easy. Inexplicably taking out Pluto's design as bait, others will definitely feel that there is a conspiracy. Hancock gently handed over the steaming hot tea, then said with some worry. The group of people from the Marine headquarters and the Revolutionary Army, including the Yonko, 4 emperors, are not idiots. It's impossible for them to be stupid enough to fall into the trap. There is no need to worry about this kind of small problem. As long as the design is real, even if they know it is a trap, they will rush to get in. This is human nature, whether it is the Revolutionary Army, Red Hair Shanks and Blackbeard of the Yonko, 4 emperors, or the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, and Sakazuki of the world government. These people are eager to get Pluto's design. Wu Qin explained firmly. In fact, it was the same meaning. If there was something that could increase his strength, even if he knew it was a trap, Wu Qin would give it a try. Human nature is greedy, this is what it means. In addition, there is no doubt that the pirates certainly don't want ancient weapons to fall into the hands of the government. The same is true for the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. They hope that the government can control Pluto, and the Revolutionary Army also has its own ideas. Therefore, it is destined that this group of people will gather at Dressrosa. Once the goal is achieved, Dustless will order Caesar to completely destroy Dressrosa. What is waiting for them is the infinite Tsukuyomi. It is never wrong to prepare for a rainy day. By the way, what is the situation in the New World recently? 100 Beast Kaido and Big Umamu are dead, and most of the pirates in the world are in dispute. Uchiha Madara replaced 100 Beast Kaido, but his territories were not inherited by Dustless and Big Umamu. Therefore, pirates all over the world are killing each other, and they are all jealous of the remaining Yonko, for emperors, position. Those pirates are really short-sighted. During this cruel time of fighting for the position of Yonko, for emperors, the Marine headquarters watched from the sidelines and turned a deaf ear to the struggle for hegemony of the Yonko, for emperors. Fleet Admiral Akainu, Sakazuki, didn't send out a single soldier, and a large group of pirates killed each other. In the end, it was the Marine who benefited. The Revolutionary Army and Akagami, Red Hair, pirates have been very close recently. After a long silence, Hancock suddenly said something surprising. This is expected. The relationship between Luffy and Red Hair Shanks is well known, and Luffy's father is the leader of the Revolutionary Army. It is normal for Red Hair Shanks to hook up with him. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stagnated, and immediately sneered. The two of them have a common enemy, and that is me. Red Hair Shanks and Dragon are not people who sit still and wait for death. It is natural for them to choose another way out. It is normal for them to collude together to deal with me. Chapter 928. Speaking of this, Dustless's tone suddenly stagnated, and he immediately sneered. They both have a common enemy, which is me. Red Hair Shanks and Drago are not people who wait for death. It's natural for them to choose another way out. It's normal for them to collude with each other to deal with me. The conspiracy of Drago and Red Hair Shanks, and even other people participated in it, was also within Dustless's expectations. No one would sit still and wait for death. It was normal for them to even give up their grudges and work together with Blackbeard in the past. There was no eternal grudge, only eternal interests. Blackbeard also regarded Dustless as his biggest enemy, so it was normal for them to go together. In fact, as Dustless thought, Blackbeard and Red Hair Shanks had contact during this period. Do you think you can stop me by joining forces? It's as ridiculous as the sun rising from the west tomorrow. Gao Yang's mouth showed contempt, and Dustless sneered at the approach of Yonko, for emperors, and the Revolutionary Army. It's all young master's fault. Hancock rolled her eyes and complained. If she was Red Hair Shanks, Monchi D. Drago, and others, she would choose the same approach. After all, with a godlike enemy, there was no other way but to join forces. That's because they brought it upon themselves. This is the price of going against me. Dustless's murderous intent was exposed, and his whole body was filled with a dangerous aura. His pair of deep eyes instantly became as cold as a beast. Red Hair Shanks opposed me more than 10 years ago. Later, I cut off his arm. I thought that kid would be more sensible, but now it seems that he didn't realize his shortcomings. Instead, he became even more aggressive. Since he was so insensible, Dustless could only crush him. By the way, young master, as if thinking of something, Hancock frowned. A few days ago, Clia, Saint, suddenly visited, and you happened to be away from Mariewa. Dustless was confused when he heard that. He scratched his head and didn't remember that he knew this person. Then he asked blankly, I don't seem to have any connection with this person, especially since there is a holy behind her name. She should be a celestial dragon. I don't have such a person. Suddenly, a beautiful golden figure appeared in his mind. Wuchen suddenly thought of his fiancée of more than 10 years, long golden hair cascaded down his back like a waterfall. His eyes were pure and flawless like gems. His perfect face was like a masterpiece of the heavens, a work of the gods. He was wearing a slender holy sword, and his aura was noble and pure. Every inch of his body was abnormally perfect. That's strange. Why did she suddenly come looking for me? It's been more than 10 years. I thought that Clea had already died. Also, she hasn't come looking for me for more than 10 years. I'm afraid that she's already old. Dustless waved his hand and said in annoyance, "Tell her not to look for me in the future." Anyway, the two of them didn't have any connection. They had only met once, and Dustless almost killed her at that time. There was no need to think about the relationship between the two of them. "Young master, you worry too much. Clea, holy, is the same as the young man. Her appearance hasn't deteriorated. She still maintains her original appearance." Hancock smiled mysteriously. "Just her." Dustless had a strange expression on his face when he heard that. It wasn't that he looked down on her. That girl named Clea had the strength of a general. At most, she was in the category of Kaido and the others. In the eyes of the world, she was strong enough, but it was impossible for her to stay young forever. Forget it. No matter what, don't ask her to look for me in the future. Otherwise, I won't be polite. Dustless didn't have a good impression of that Clea, holy. He still clearly remembered that she not only broke into Dustless's bedroom, but also criticized Dustless's writing. And that woman is very strange. She doesn't seem to belong to the human race. I'm not interested in that kind of person. Dustless shivered unnaturally. What if a toad turned into a human and he became her fiancé? Dustless shivered thinking about it. Ta-ta-ta, suddenly, there were messy footsteps in the corridor. Khalifa. Staring at Khalifa who suddenly appeared, Dustless was surprised. Before, he arranged for Khalifa to collect information. Now that White Zetsu betrayed them, all the information fell on Khalifa's head. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dorag, and Shanks met. It seems that there is also Marshal D. Titch. Khalifa's tone was extremely uncalm. This was equivalent to 3 Yonko, 4 emperors, teaming up. It has nothing to do with me. This should be the Marines' concern. It's not our turn to care. Dustless chuckled. He was unusually calm. Then he added, if the 3 of them can team up and come to Dressrosa to die, that would be the best. Dressrosa, with its beautiful scenery, was very suitable to be the tomb of the Yonko, 4 emperors. Master, don't dream about it. Hancock complained. Dustless smiled mysteriously. No, this is not a dream. Maybe it won't be long before the Yonko, 4 emperors, come to Dressrosa to die. On an island in the New World, there were 3 warships docked at the port. The warships didn't have any flags, and the power they belonged to was unknown. But the people who came down from them belonged to the people who could make the world tremble. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Dorag, Sabo, the current Yonko, 4 emperors, Shanks, Blackbeard, and an unexpected figure, Uchiha Madara. Chapter 929. The leader of the Revolutionary Army, Durag, Sabo, the current Yonko, Shanks, Blackbeard, and an unexpected figure, Tendo Uchiha Madara. A few days ago, Dustless accidentally controlled Uchiha Madara to encounter Shanks. As a result, this guy happened to say something about an alliance to deal with the huge crisis brought by the Marine. Curious, Dustless also readily agreed. That's why today's meeting was held. Why is this guy in this meeting? I didn't get any notice in advance. In the temporary building, Blackbeard took the opportunity to attack Uchiha Madara. His body was full of high density and terrifying hostility. He didn't have a good impression of Uchiha Madara. Oh. You didn't get any notice in advance, but I knew it a long time ago. You're just an insignificant person. Hearing this, Uchiha Madara smiled, giving people a feeling of being quite approachable. But in Blackbeard's ears, it was particularly harsh. I'm also very surprised. Uchiha Madara stared at Blackbeard with a playful gaze, and immediately sneered, showing an expression of shame. I didn't expect to meet a cat or a dog like you, bad luck. Hearing this, Blackbeard's old face twitched. He naturally understood what Uchiha Madara meant. A few years ago, he was defeated by Uchiha Madara. And the battle was almost one-sided. Blackbeard was crushed and beaten by Uchiha Madara. At that time, he was like a baby in swaddling clothes, without any power to fight back. The two sides were not in the same dimension at all. I'm not what I used to be. After that, Blackbeard released an awe-inspiring and overbearing momentum, and the whole person's momentum was monstrous. Boom! Outside the room, even if he didn't have Haushiku Haki at this moment, endless darkness spewed out from his body, covering the sky and the earth, and the void within a radius of tens of kilometers was dim. It wasn't just that. The boundless horizon was covered in cracks, and it was riddled with holes. It was a complete mess. The cracks spread out without any pattern, and it seemed as if they were about to swallow the entire sky. The ability of Tremor Fruit, Blackbeard obviously practiced to the extreme. In the past 2 years, he also made rapid progress. Bang! 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 The cold wind suddenly hit, and Blackbeard's momentum shattered the window. Not only that, the whole earth and the house swayed with his frequency. Do you want to fight? Uchiha Madara asked indifferently with a cold smile on his face. His casual words ignited the flames in Blackbeard's heart. His entire being was like a barrel of gunpowder that had been ignited, filled with explosive danger. Blackbeard wasn't an idiot. From this casual sentence, he knew that he was being looked down upon by this guy again. Since becoming a Yonko, he has always been arrogant. This was the first time he was ridiculed. This old thing will never amount to anything great. In the end, he can only be one of the 4 emperors. 2's Uchiha Madara, dustless, Blackbeard, and Blackbeard's has made no progress in other s. Has. Blackbeard, if you want to fight, I have no right to stop it, but I will stand on his side. Pointing to Uchiha Madara, Red Hair Shanks said very wisely. Me too, I will stand on his side. Taking a deep look at Red Hair Shanks, the reticent Durag said. You want to work together to deal with me? Blackbeard vomited blood, and cursed in his heart. He was also a smart person, and he naturally knew what this meant. Not only Uchiha Madara looked down on him, but Durag and Red Hair Shanks also looked down on him. In the troubled world, the strong are respected, and the 2 of them turned to Uchiha Madara because they agreed that Uchiha Madara was stronger than Blackbeard. Otherwise, Red Hair Shanks and Durag may have teamed up with Blackbeard to deal with Uchiha Madara. In the end, in this world, the strong people have the final say, and in the end, they think that Uchiha Madara has a better future. It's all to deal with the Marine. It's not too late to talk about personal grievances later. Knocking lightly on the table, Durag's voice was soft, but full of reason. Giving Uchiha Madara a fierce look, the angry Blackbeard restrained his anger. Even if Durag and Red Hair Shanks really scared him, Blackbeard didn't dare to act rashly. You only have 1 life, and if you lose the bet, it's gone. Yes, this time I came up to discuss how to deal with Royce South. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, laughed and continued to control Uchiha Madara. I recently got information that Royce South is in Dressrosa. We should ambush him immediately. Otherwise, when he returns to the Marine headquarters or Mariewa, it will be difficult to kill him. That's right, this is indeed an opportunity. The Marine headquarters is full of strong people, and Mariewa is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Blackbeard rarely agreed with Uchiha Madara's point of view, bowing his head and agreeing. Being beaten by Dustless in succession has become his shadow, and this thorn in his flesh must be pulled out. Chapter 930. Shanks and Durag looked at each other and could see the cautiousness and hesitation in each other's eyes. They both felt like they were playing with fire. Although Dustless is only an admiral, his strength is obvious to all, far beyond the level of an admiral. Even far beyond the Yonko, 4 emperors. After all, Dustless played Whitebeard, who is recognized as the strongest man, in the end. Even some pirates in the New World jokingly said that Dustless is God in a marine cape. He has become an absolute existence. Perhaps there is some exaggeration, but Shanks and Durag agree that although this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, attacking rashly will definitely hurt them. I also firmly oppose it. At this moment, a powerful voice suddenly came, and a young man with a long sword and a hat suddenly appeared, looking at Uchiha Madara and Blackbeard with dissatisfaction. I know the strength of Royce South, it is unfathomable, and it is the territory of Doflamingo. Don't underestimate that Shichibukai, he is not easy to deal with. The nickname of Sea Rogue is not for nothing. The man said vigilantly, and when he mentioned Doflamingo, his eyes flashed with hatred. This remark immediately attracted the agreement of Shanks and Durag, and even Blackbeard, who advocated the attack, was slightly prepared. Dressrosa has been run by Doflamingo for many years, and it has long become a tiger's den. This little guy actually came to join in the fun. Dustless of Dressrosa frowned, and immediately spat out cold air. There is a road to heaven, but you don't take it, and there is no door to hell, but you throw yourself into it. It seems that if I don't kill him, I will not succeed in fooling them to go to Dressrosa to die. I wanted to send you to Infinite Tsukuyumi to dream, but since you want to die early, I will fulfill your wish. Uchiha Madara's calm eyes flashed, exuding a red light and coldness, and he stared at the young man with the hat, Telejaffer Law. His body finally turned into a shadow and rushed out. Phew! Tendo Uchiha Madara's attack shocked everyone. The scene was dead silent. Everyone looked at Uchiha Madara with surprise. Of course, there are some who have sharp eyes and quick hands. Whoosh! A black shadow followed closely behind him and rushed out at high speed. Clang! A roar sounded, and suddenly 2 figures flashed on the empty ground in front of Law. One of them stopped Uchiha Madara's attack. Shanks, what do you mean by this? Do you want to be my enemy? Madara asked as he increased the force in his hand and forced Shanks back a step or two. The red-haired Shanks frowned slightly and immediately said without backing down, Law as a guest I invited, not only him, but also the other Shichibukai. As Akagami's voice fell, a man dressed as a clown with a huge red nose also walked in. It was Buggy, one of the current Shichibukai. This group of bastards, they are indeed not good people. Red Shirsans, Red Shanks, Shanks is so shameless, Red, Shanks, Ruah, Shanks. His heart is terrible. Our order is to overthrow the world government, not to deal with a marine admiral. Seeing everyone's eyebrows pulled on Dustless, Durag had to stand up and say his point of view. Hearing this, Red Hair Shanks smiled calmly and said, You may not know that Louis South is a marine admiral, and he also has the identity of a celestial dragon. It is natural for the Revolutionary Army to deal with him. After thinking about it, Durag nodded silently. Get out of my way, I must kill this kid. Uchiha Madara's killing intent soared to the sky, and a powerful momentum broke out of his body, making people breathless. He is our ally. Shanks strengthened his tone and refused to back down. Law was invited by him. If he killed him, where would his face go? Uchiha Madara's refusal to back down made him feel extremely puzzled and asked, If you want to kill someone, at least give everyone a suitable reason. Everyone looked at Tendo Uchiha Madara with recognition. Dressrosa's Dustless stagnated, and his eyes changed rapidly. He scratched his head and couldn't think of a suitable reason. At the moment, the chakra in his body erupted, and he planned to force Law, but a light suddenly appeared in his mind. This kid, he has always been Doflamingo's subordinate. He must have been sent by Doflamingo to spy on us. Regardless of the consequences, Uchiha Madara's words were filled with dirty water. Hearing this, Law's thoughts were obviously messed up, he was speechless, and there was a brief silence. After a while, he immediately explained, I used to be Doflamingo's subordinate, but Pucci. The cold light came like the speed of light, and in the blink of an eye, Law's chest was easily crushed and his heart was crushed in one fell swoop. It turned out to be him. Uchiha Madara was also surprised to see the figure behind Law. He didn't expect that he would kill Law. Chapter 931. Not only was Tendo Uchiha Madara stunned, Red Hair Shanks and Blackbeard were also very surprised. Looking at the huge bloody hole in Law's chest and the shattered heart, everyone was stunned. I'm sorry, young man. Although your name also has D in it, and you even saved that silly boy Luffy during the War of the Best, please forgive me. As for the reason for killing you, Royce South's strength is beyond imagination. Maybe you were tampered with by him, but you still don't know it. I used to be the same. The one who gave Law a fatal blow and destroyed his heart in one fell swoop, Monchi D. Dorag, Luffy's biological father. This is not fair. Law, who reacted, roared loudly, looking at the dagger that was inserted into his chest. He looked back and stared at Dorag, whose face was full of guilt, and roared loudly, if it was your son today, don't tell me that you would do the same. After that, Law's pupils dilated to the largest extent in his life. As long as Dorag was lying, he would be able to see it. Even if it was Luffy standing in front of me, I would not hesitate to raise the butcher's knife. Dorag's tone was very firm, and he said unwaveringly, what we are carrying is the whole world. Even if it's my son, if he's suspected of being in cahoots with Royce South or Doflamingo, I'll still kill him without hesitation. These cold-blooded and ruthless words shocked everyone by Dorag's decisiveness. Cold-blooded animal. Seeing this unexpected scene, Dushless, who was far away in Dressrosa, sighed. Although he could understand Dorag's indifference and impartiality as a leader, especially in this important period, but if it was Dushless, he might not be able to do it. However, I have to thank Dorag for helping me get rid of this eyesore. Since you didn't hesitate to offend Red Hair Shanks to help me, hee. When I release the infinite Tsukuyomi, I will make you the king of the world as a token of my gratitude. Dustless smiled sinisterly. I curse you, despicable and shameless bastard, to be torn into pieces. And you too. Aware of the rapid loss of vitality, Law roared angrily and unwillingly. He didn't expect to be killed so inexplicably. He still had a lot of dreams to fulfill. If you're dead, then you're dead. Why are you still struggling? It's hard to even leave your corpse intact. He strode forward and took out an extremely sharp kunai. A cold light splashed in the void. Then, Luo Jian's head was separated from his body. He was killed like a dog. This brat. I helped you get rid of your enemy, Doflamingo, and avenge your most respected Corazon. Yet, not only are you not grateful to me, you're even cursing me, you deserve this fate. Dustless slandered him. This bastard was also courting death. This luxurious banquet originally did not have a stage that belonged to him. Since he wanted to join in, Dustless could only send him to heaven in advance. Hey, this guy is the Shichibukai. The government can be our informant. His strength is also good. He's a powerful fighting force. Looking at Law, who was completely dead, Red Hair Shanks sighed. This person has died, and it's impossible for him to fall out with Dorag and Tendo Uchiha Madara. I can only hope that he has a connection with the dangerous man Doflamingo. Dorag said with a blank expression. At the same time, he calmly returned to his original position as if nothing had happened. Yes. Tendo Uchiha Madara also echoed and deliberately raised his voice to remind, even if spying information, isn't there still the Shichibukai? After Uchiha Madara's reminder, everyone's eyes looked at the man behind red hair Shanks. They were all surprised, thinking of his identity and past experience, and then nodded. The focus of several pairs of eyes was the clown buggy. I still don't agree with attacking Dressrosa. Royce South, Dustless, and Doflamingo are too dangerous. If we attack rashly, we will automatically die. Dorag said very stubbornly. As the leader of the Revolutionary Army, he has been hiding for so many years, and he can't suddenly expose himself like this. Red Hair Shanks also nodded immediately. This group of guys. It seems that if we don't make some movements, it's impossible to make them take the initiative to die. Looking at several people, Tendo Uchiha Madara thought. Monchi D, Dorag and Red Hair Shanks are the kind of people who are extremely careful. It's impossible to make them die without risking anything. Being too strong is also a sin. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, sighed with deep helplessness. Sometimes being too strong is indeed a sin. Your words are too unfair to those who have been killed by you. If Whitebeard knows, he will definitely jump out of hell to find trouble with you, young master. Hancock, who has been standing beside Dustless, didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dustless's words were really too hurtful. Ta-ta-ta, the sound of hurried footsteps suddenly sounded. Uchiha Madara raised his eyes and looked at the pirates rushing over. After seeing the things on their bodies, he breathed a sigh of relief, feeling as if the clouds were lifted and the sky was clear. In the end, no matter how they change, it seems that they can't escape my control. Chapter 932. A man with a flattering face, a little famous, one of the members of the Blackbeard Pirates, Bolses. Dustless recognized him. In the future, he was the one who said that he would rob Ace's relic, the flame fruit, from Luffy. Now, even if I don't want to go to Dressrosa, I have to walk right into the trap. With a faint smile, Tendo Uchiha Madara sat back in his seat. Even if he was just a corpse, he was still leisurely sipping his tea. Quietly looking at the newspaper in Bolse's hand, Uchiha Madara's face flashed with relief. Captain, oh, no, Admiral Titch. Bolse's face was tangled. Since Blackbeard took the position of Yonko for emperors, and inherited the legacy of the former Whitebeard, he disliked the nickname of Blackbeard and called himself Admiral. What's the point of being so reckless? Blackbeard glared at Bolses with dissatisfaction. He felt extremely embarrassed. Right now, there were 3 Yonko, 4 emperors, gathered here, including himself. However, this brat's expression was as if he had seen a ghost. He had thrown his face in front of his archenemy, Red Hair Shanks. Maybe you're more surprised than Bolses. Looking at Blackbeard playfully, Uchiha Madara continued to drink alone. Just as Uchiha Madara guessed, after receiving the newspaper in Bolse's hand, Blackbeard's face was dull, his rough mouth wide enough to stuff a fist. That bastard Doflamingo. Is he crazy? Staring at the newspaper, Blackbeard's eyes were bloodshot and almost fell out. After confirming that he wasn't dizzy from old age, he almost roared. His sharp and numb voice was quite like a eunuch's. Seeing Blackbeard lose his composure, Shanks and Durag squeezed their faces together, puzzled. It must be explosive news to make Whitebeard, one of the Yonko, 4 emperors, lose his composure. Out of curiosity, they also picked up the extra newspaper, and so did Buggy. It's okay if you don't read the content of the newspaper, but as soon as you read it, your expressions were all petrified. Their trembling arms grabbed the newspaper and even tore it uncontrollably. Don't be surprised. Uchiha Madara laughed contemptuously. He immediately picked up the newspaper and glanced at it, pretending to be surprised. That idiot Doflamingo actually used the ancient weapon Pluto as the reward for the arena champion. These words were like water ripples that brushed past everyone's ears. He raised his voice on purpose. We should immediately head to Dressrosa and snatch the Pluto design blueprint. The future revolution requires the protection of a world-destroying weapon like the Pluto. Commander Titch, send troops to wipe out Dressrosa of Doflamingo. I'm willing to be the vanguard. The position of the king of the world is right in front of us. Shanks, we must obtain the Hades blueprint. Once we create the ancient weapon, we can take revenge and destroy that despicable demon, Louis Mail. The appearance of Pluton's blueprint ignited the emotions of all the pirates. Their faces were full of fanaticism and yearning. They couldn't wait to grow wings and flatten Dressrosa. The crew of the Akagami, Red Hair, pirates and the Blackbeard pirates, including the Revolutionary Army cadres brought by Dorag, all encouraged their bosses to seize the Pluto design blueprint. In this way, you have to go even if you don't want to. With a smile, Uchiha Madara closed his eyes comfortably. This group of people had no right to choose. From the beginning, they were destined to be led by the nose. Conspiracy, this must be a conspiracy. Doflamingo can't take out this kind of thing for no reason. I remember that kid. He is the most cunning. There must be a problem. Yes, this blueprint must be fake. He is the Shichibukai. He must have colluded with the government to trap us. Without even thinking about it, he directly rejected the Pluto design blueprint in the newspaper. And the one who denied it was Blackbeard, who looked like he had seen a ghost. The data doesn't seem to be fake. If this is true. Akagami, Red Hair, murmured after careful confirmation, revealing a deep greed and covetousness in his words. Just like what his vice-captain, Ben Beckman, had said, after obtaining Pluto and creating it, the Navy government and Lois Nandon would be nothing but a joke. One shot of destruction. This. Although I don't know if it is Pluto's design blueprint, one thing is certain. This is definitely an unprecedented super battleship design blueprint. The speaker was the Revolutionary Army senior brought by Dorag. The Revolutionary Army is different from the poor pirates. In recent years, they have plundered many professional shipbuilding masters. You have a little vision. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, was relieved. He was really afraid that this group of bumpkins wouldn't recognize it. After all, it is a legendary weapon. So what, I can be sure that this is a conspiracy. Blackbeard still sneered, such a superficial plan is too obvious. I know it may be a conspiracy. Dorag and Shank's faces were extremely ugly. There was no need to think about it. Doflamingo took out the Pluto design blueprint. But what can they do? Can they not go if it is a conspiracy? Obviously not, in case the world government gets it. Akagami, Red Hair, and Dorag, Red Hair, were pale. Even if they knew that this was a conspiracy, they had to go. Once the world government gets Pluto's design, they will definitely be destroyed. That kid is so good at playing. Blackbeard, who had figured it out, vomited blood. His messy hair was like a bird's nest with crows entrenched in it. This was an open conspiracy from beginning to end. After not seeing each other for a while, Doflamingo's methods of scheming had improved by leaps and bounds. But no one knows that Doflamingo at this moment has been made one of the 6 paths by Dustless. Chapter 933. Blackbeard was tense and experienced, and he spat out hot air waves from his nostrils. He tried to find a reasonable explanation to comfort himself, but he couldn't find an excuse after thinking for a long time. Unable to be comforted, he was angry and felt worse than being slapped a few times. The dignified Yonko, for emperors, was schemed against by a Shichibukai for the time being. Even if he knew that this was a trap, he still insisted on going in. The flame of grievance almost burned his head. That bastard is smarter than before. He set up a trap that even if we knew it was a conspiracy, we still had to go into it. Damn Doflamingo. Red Hair Shanks's face was also extremely ugly. There were blue veins on both sides of his forehead, and his iron fists were clenched tightly. It doesn't matter if he is schemed against by other Yonko, 4 emperors. Anyway, everyone is at the same level, and he can't fight back. But he was inexplicably slapped by Doflamingo, and he couldn't fight back. Not only that, but he was also led by the nose by him. This has exceeded the limit of what he can tolerate. You are just part of my plan. The actors are far from enough. You only represent One Piece and the Revolutionary Army. You can only be regarded as the second and third protagonist. The first protagonist is not you. Through the sight of Uchiha Madara, Dustless in Dressrosa smiled calmly. Pluton can attract the attention of forces all over the world, and One Piece and the Revolutionary Army are only part of it. Not only the few of us, but those forces who know the value of the King of Hell, will also rush to Dressrosa and obtain the King of Hell and the world. Who can resist such temptation? You can't, I can't, the whole world can't. Monchi D, Dorag said heavily, and sweat stains came out of his temples. The Gorosei, 5 elder stars, of the world government, including the Marine, will certainly not be able to escape the temptation of Pluton. They should take out all their high-end battle power and fight back. It is impossible for Pluton's design to fall into our hands. Suddenly rolling his eyes, Drago's eyes were filled with cold murderous intent. That bastard Doflamingo, he's determined to drag the whole world down with him. No matter who gets the Pluto blueprint, they will suffer a great loss. You're right. Tendo Uchiha Madara agreed and immediately put on a cautious expression. Don't forget that the celestial dragon named Louis South is still in Dressrosa. If we want to take Pluton, we will have to fight him. We must bring all the elites to barely defeat him. It's true that all the elite pirates should be concentrated. When they confront each other, they are bound to encounter the Marines and even the world government. Maybe even the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, will personally take action. Everyone nodded and agreed with Uchiha Madara's words. In the face of a godlike enemy, they must come up with a godlike formation to deal with it. Of course, no one could understand the meaning behind Uchiha Madara's words. Moreover, even if it's a trap, so what? After obtaining the Pluto's design blueprint, the history of the entire world will be written by us. Uchiha Madara's words led everyone to fall into a real dream. In a trance, they saw the evil rule that destroyed the world government, standing at the top of the world and being praised by all living beings. Dorag and the others, who came back to their senses, looked at each other. In this case, it's better to fight with all their strength. These troublesome ants have finally been dealt with. Dustless, who was far away in Dressrosa, breathed a sigh of relief. It was really a laborious thing to gather them together. First, I will use Pluton to kill the most threatening group of people, and then I will use Infinite Tsukumi to finish it off. Then I will use Chakra to connect all the humans to the tree. In this way, it should be no problem to bear new Chakra fruits. Even if they can't reach the same level as me, it should be no problem to prolong their life and keep their youth forever. Recalling the girls in the system, Dustless sighed a little tiredly. After working so hard for so many years, in the end, it was all for them. Now that everything is about to end, the shackles that have always been with him are gone, and it's particularly comfortable. As for the guilt of Infinite Tsukumi bringing the whole world into the Genjutsu world, Dustless doesn't have this feeling. Being oppressed by pirates is oppressing, being exploited by the world government is still being exploited, anyway, it's just a distorted world. In this case, it's better to go to the dream world together and be their ideal selves. They should thank me, the creator. In the end, Dustless came to such a conclusion. Following Dressrosa's announcement that the final victor of the arena would receive the Hades design, the people of the entire world were like sharks that had smelled blood, rushing to Dressrosa one after another. Just the design blueprint ignited the emotions of the whole world. The forces that knew what Pluton was naturally couldn't wait, and the ignorant people who didn't know what Pluton was laughed at. In short, the whole world was shocked by the sudden movement of Doflamingo. At this moment, a major event happened in the Marine headquarters. The Marine generals were also divided into two factions. At first glance, there seemed to be signs of division. Chapter 934. The Marine, as the world's largest organization, received the news earlier than the Yonko, for emperors, and held an emergency meeting for the first time. Because of the special reasons this time, only the high-level leaders with real power were gathered. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. After getting Pluton's design, it's not a problem to build it with the government's ability. We can use Pluton to end the era of the Great Pirate. We must rush to Dressrosa. I don't need to think about it to know that this is a conspiracy. Who would call out such a precious thing like Pluton's design? The Marine can just watch the fire from the shore and calmly watch the pirates fighting over the blueprints kill each other. This old man firmly does not agree to mobilize all forces to attack Dressrosa. Within a few hours, the meeting of the Marine headquarters was centered around these two topics. The one who agreed to attack Dressrosa was naturally the radical Akainu, Sakazuki, and the one who was against it was Admiral Fujitora, who was not weak. Fujitora, make it clear to me that the Marine Fleet Admiral is Sakazuki, not Fujitora. Hot magma rose from his hand and turned the cigar into ashes. Akainu sat in the seat that used to belong to Sengoku. After being the fleet admiral for a while, he didn't feel the slightest difference. Instead, he felt more and more headache. Especially the admiral in front of him who often fought with Akainu. The contradiction between the two sides was no less than Akainu and Akiji. Fujitora was even more excessive than Akiji. He didn't care about the fleet admiral's face and often stood up to disgust him. My eyes are blind, but my heart is not blind. I know that the fleet admiral is Sakazuki. Fujitora said in a calm tone, and immediately a sentence directly made Akainu tremble. If I were the fleet admiral, you would have been kicked out of the Marine, and it would not be your turn to order people around. Hearing this, Akainu's old face turned black, and he immediately took a deep breath and tightly suppressed the flames in his chest. First, the current situation is special, and he can't directly remove the position of Admiral Fujitora. Second, he has the support of Sengoku, Air, and veteran Marines like Garp. He often goes against Akainu without scruples. Sakazuki, attacking Dressrosa rashly is a risky move. You know the nature of Doflamingo. Fujitora lowered his voice and lowered his posture. Akainu is also a Marine Fleet Admiral, and the most basic face has to be given. What a joke. Akainu sneered at this. What's the use of taking risks? So what if it was a trap? Do you want to watch Pluton's design fall into the hands of the pirates? There is news that the pirate leaders of the New World, the Yonko, for emperors, are showing signs of joining forces. If we are late, the Pluton design blueprint will be theirs. In the future, the New World will not have a place for the Navy. The Marine admirals nodded silently. Akainu's words were not alarmist. If the Marine gets Pluton's design, waiting for Pluton to be born in the future, the Marine and the world government will be the first unlucky ones. But this is Doflamingo's scheme. If we go, we will definitely fall into his trap. Fujitora smiled and argued. Even an idiot could see that this was a huge trap. Doflamingo had dug a deep pit. The Marines clearly knew that this was a trick, but they still jumped in without hesitation. It was really a brainless behavior. That makes sense. There are also many Marine generals who think that Fujitora is right. The two of you, please don't argue. The old voice stopped the two quarreling men and was surprisingly useful. Akainu and Fujitora immediately stopped the war of words. Looking closely, it was Vice Admiral Tsuru, the most senior Marine at present. This kind of thing has made a lot of noise all over the world. The Pluton design blueprint has exceeded the scope of Marine's management. In fact, it is useless for us to discuss such a big matter. We can't make the decision at all. The right to speak is not in our hands. The five of Mariewa are probably thinking about how to deal with it now. I believe that it won't be long before their orders will be passed to us, so there is no need to talk about quarreling. From beginning to end, we Marines don't have the final say. After saying a lot of words in a row, Vice Admiral Tsuru was also a little tired. Looking at Akainu and Fujitora, Vice Admiral Tsuru's old face was gloomy. It was extremely difficult for the two to sit quietly together and talk about plans, let alone cooperate. Both sides were stubborn and aggressive at the same time, and no one was willing to admit defeat, causing the current embarrassing situation of the Marines. The entire Marine was faintly divided into two factions. Then wait for the call from above. Akainu could only swallow the flames in his stomach. If he could, he would like to beat Fujitora now. This old guy is really annoying. This kind of scene is not the first or second time. Every time he makes the fleet admiral embarrassed. Sometimes he even becomes the target of public criticism. He doesn't have the quality of an admiral at all. Then wait for the call from Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Fujitora heard this and rested silently. Rumble, about half an hour later, the black Den Mushi, which had remained silent, suddenly rang. This was usually used to contact Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Sakazuki, it's me. On the other side of the Den Mushi, there was a powerful voice of one of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Akainu heard this and opened his mouth. When he was about to ask the Marine what to do, the news from Den Mushi shocked him. Not only Akainu, but also Fujitora, who was still angry, and Vice Admiral Tsuru, including other Marine Vice Admirals, also had the same expression. Chapter 935. A group of Marines was directly petrified, their eyes widened, and their faces were full of disbelief. Even Vice Admiral Tsuru, who was usually the calmest, had a dreamy expression. Even if it wasn't for the black Den Mushi and the voice of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, she would have thought that this was someone else's pretense. Well? Is there any problem? On the other side, Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, heard that Akainu didn't answer for a long time and asked with a little doubt. Akainu looked stiff and looked around, and all the Marines nodded. There is no problem in arresting Royce South. But a Marine Admiral was inexplicably arrested. If you don't give a suitable reason, it will be difficult to convince the Marines. That guy killed Whitebeard during the War of the Best, and was called a hero by the entire Marine. There are many people who admire him inside the Marine. Akainu said awkwardly. Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, is simply too much. The content of the Den Mushi is the arrest of the current Marine Admiral Royce South. Even Akainu, who has a will like steel, is dizzy at this moment. Maybe, this may directly pull the whole world into the abyss. Royce South, isn't that guy a celestial dragon? Why does the government want to arrest him? Fujitora asked with deep confusion in his words. Arresting a powerful celestial dragon for no reason, he instinctively felt that something was wrong. Reason? This kind of thing is already known to the whole world. Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, on the opposite side of the Den Mushi couldn't suppress the flame. Like an angry lion, he roared loudly. The black hand behind the scenes supporting Doflamingo is Royce South. Hearing this, all the Marines' faces turned sharply. They all clenched their fists and looked extremely dignified. The tone of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, has no room for negotiation. This reason can indeed arrest Dustless. But Akainu was still frowning. After listening to the explanation of Gorosei, 5 elder stars, his whole person was not relaxed but became more and more deep. The status of celestial dragons is higher than Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Even if Royce South is arrested, it will not be their turn. It is the CP0 who is looking for trouble with Royce South. What does it have to do with Gorosei, 5 elder stars? This is obviously overstepping their authority and meddling in other people's business. Akainu thought hard in his heart, and he couldn't figure it out even if he scratched his head. Just do as I say. Your navy will immediately mobilize all your forces and immediately encircle Dressrosa's Lois South. Don't worry about anything else. After that, without waiting for Akainu to answer, he continued to say, Royce South's strength is extraordinary. We have already thought about the bounty, 2 billion berries. He immediately hung up the den mushi. What do you have to say now? Staring at Fujitora, Akainu asked in a stern tone. Hearing this, Fujitora was silent and his face was gloomy. He had a bad premonition in his heart. The Gorosei inexplicably ordered the Marine to capture Royce South must not be a good thing. Are we arresting the celestial dragon suspected of insubordination? After a while, Fujitora suddenly said. Everyone, including Akainu and the other 2 admirals, Green Ox and Kizaru, had unnatural expressions. The world government is the boss of the Marine, and Tenryubito is the boss behind the scenes of the world government. He was indeed offending his superiors. Although I don't know the reason, it seems that I can only obey orders. To be honest, if I can, I really don't want to be enemies with that horrible man. Maybe our end will be worse than Dushless. Kizaru said helplessly. He was afraid of avoiding Dushless. At present, this is the only thing we can do. Although he is a former colleague, it is a bit unfair to do this now, but it is the duty of the Marine to obey orders. Gather all the elites of the Marine and immediately rush to Dressrosa to flatten Royce South. Akainu waved his hand and continued to order, also, immediately expel that guy from the Marine and classify him as a pirate with a bounty of 2 billion berries. Due to the propaganda of the Marine, Dustless was kicked out of the Marine. In just a few hours, the news spread all over the world at a miraculous speed. The whole world seemed to have been hit by an unprecedented tsunami, which made the pirates and Marines all over the world, including other forces, dizzy. Gee! Not only did they expel me from the Tenryubito identity, but they also deprived me of the Admiral's identity. This kind of thing can't be done by Akainu, only the 5 old guys. Inside Dressrosa's palace, compared to the turbulent world outside, Dustless's place was peaceful. He was enjoying afternoon tea as usual. Hancock massaged Dustless's legs without changing her expression, Perona still massaged Dustless's shoulders with an unhappy face, and Caliphus stood beside Dustless like a javelin. In short, nothing has changed. Compared with the safe and sound Dustless, Mariewa at this moment is another scene, like the Avicii Hell, the most bloody and violent side since the establishment of the world government more than 800 years ago. Mariewa, which usually looks like a peaceful paradise, is now a sea of blood. Chapter 936. At night, today's Mariewa was very different from the past, and even the atmosphere was extremely strange. Mariewa's port was completely sealed. Bastard, do you want breakfast? Mere human beings, dare to attack Tenryubito, go and call Marine's admiral to come over and execute these bastards. The damn Gorosei wants to kill us all. This is blasphemy, we must burn them in the future. That group of Marines is indifferent. Under the black night sky of Mariewa, countless black figures rushed and slammed, slaughtering Tenryubito unscrupulously. Their methods were extremely cruel and bloody, and they were all fatal. Chasing the fleeing celestial dragons, the former high and mighty creator, had now become an abandoned stray dog. The obese Tenryubito could not escape the pursuit of the black-clothed man. The two sides were completely incomparable, and the Tenryubito was beheaded like a native dog. Hasn't Chris South, Dustless, fiancé, Chris, been caught yet? A broad figure came out of the darkness, with a tiger's back and a bear's waist, and a gloomy face full of hostility. When the black-clothed man saw the old man, he looked respectful. This person was wearing a Taoist robe, holding a slender ancient sword in his hand, and wearing glasses. His cold eyes were sharper than a knife, and they swept across the black-clothed man one by one. It was the bald Gorosei holding the sword. "Sorry, sir, we haven't found her yet," the black-clothed man said in fear. Hearing this, the bald Gorosei's face turned cold, and the sword in his hand came out of the scabbard, and the sword fell, and the void splashed with a touch of sharpness visible to the naked eye. "Useless rice buckets, what's the use of having you? Poochie." The black-clothed man's neck was suddenly empty, and he was cruelly dismembered by the bald Gorosei. His neck spurted blood like a fountain, cold and ruthless. "You damn human beings, dare to betray the Tenryubito. We are the descendants of the Creator." A Tenryubito who was lying in a pool of blood and had not yet died roared with red eyes. It was as crazy as a psychopath. Descendants of the Creator. Hearing this, the bald Gorosei sneered, and immediately his eyes burst into flames of ambition. "Your ancestors, the 20 kings, used the ancient weapon, Heavenly King, to destroy the country 800 years ago. Now we, the Gorosei, will do the same, destroy the order of your Tenryubito, and we will replace your Tenryubito become the new creator." The bald Gorosei with a longing look. "Now that the Heavenly King's trace has been found, there is naturally no need for your Tenryubito exist." The bald Gorosei, Chris, Gorosei, the Gorosei, maybe you would have been slaughtered many years ago, the bald Gorosei. After saying that, the bald Gorosei sneered and immediately waved his sword to release a cold light. Seeing blood, the throat was sealed, and the life of the celestial dragon was instantly ended. Mariewa's surroundings were completely sealed, airtight, and even a fly couldn't fly out. The celestial dragons would be eradicated, and it was a sure thing. Dustless naturally didn't know about the huge changes that had happened to Mariewa. At this moment, he was still living a drunken life, and he was extremely comfortable every day. In a blink of an eye, 7 days have passed, and the sky has gradually darkened. In the palace of Dressrosa. Through the port in the distance, Dustless's eyes flashed with a cruel smile as he stared at the pirates who continued to land in the distance. Now Dressrosa was empty. Most of these pirates who landed were coming for Pluton's design blueprint. "Master, do you still need to arrange tomorrow's gladiator tournament?" Khalifa asked confidently. The pirates who landed on the island came from all directions. Looking at them, they were all powerful people with unprecedented strength, including some big pirates with a bounty of 500 or 600 million berries. The number has reached dozens. The current Yonko, for emperors, is also among them. But even so, in the face of such a scene, Dustless's confidant was extremely calm. "It's not necessary, I will have a good sleep tonight, and tomorrow I will order Pluton to attack Dressrosa. Maybe the day after tomorrow, we will start traveling to other worlds." Dustless lowered his head and muttered to himself, looking at the thousands of pirates under Dressrosa, his eyes flashed with killing intent, and he would never show mercy to this group of pirates. In the other direction of Dressrosa, Marines also landed one after another, but most of them were high-level Marines. In this kind of world-destroying war, ordinary soldiers are just cannon fodder. At the same time, a very embarrassed voice quietly landed on the island. This person's clothes were ragged, and her white skin was looming. It was Dustless's fiancée Clea. "By the way, is Shirahoshi ready?" Suddenly turning his head, Dustless asked Princess Odoheim with some curiosity and hope. No problem. Princess Odoheim said proudly. She was quite confident in Shirahoshi. After all, she was her daughter. Wuchen nodded slightly and then squinted his eyes. The women also went back to their rooms. Due to the battle tomorrow, Wuchen did not force the women to sleep together. There was still time to deal with this group of clowns. Chapter 937. Late at night, the cold wind gradually turned cold. Only Wuchen was resting on the big soft bed. Due to the possibility of a big battle tomorrow, Wuchen also refused the few women's hospitality. It would not be too late to be ridiculous after the whole world was dragged into the nightmare of infinite Tsukimi. In the warm bed, Dustless arched his body. After a period of high tiredness, he also needed a proper rest. No one could stand living in a tense environment all day long. After some time, Dustless, who was sleeping soundly, frowned. A warm and cold body suddenly got into the bed and snuggled into Dustless's arms like a kitten. Like a little bird, she slowly took off Dustless's pajamas. Dustless felt that this body was unfamiliar. When he was about to open his eyes to explore, cold thin lips suddenly blocked his mouth and unscrupulously asked for more. Could it be Robin? It must be. After so many years, she finally became enlightened. Wuchen relaxed his frowning brows and enjoyed the taste of the fusion of ice and fire. He closed his eyes contentedly. About a few minutes later, Wuchen's calm heart was stirred up by the ecstasy. The perfect body in the bed was like an exquisite work of art. It was perfect to the extreme. Even with his eyes closed, Dustless could feel the delicacy of the skin. After a while, Dustless changed from defense to offense. He was not a monk. He could not restrain his desires nor suppress them. The next morning, the warm air passed through the window as usual. Dustless rubbed his eyes and opened them sleepily. Unexpectedly, a perfect face was looking at him with a smile. Her sacred green eyes were flawless, and her white arms were supporting her chin. Every strand of her beautiful golden hair was as dazzling as gold. Her fresh and elegant temperament made her seem like a fairy that had descended from the ninth heaven. What made one's blood boil was that this perfect character girl was actually not wearing any clothes to cover her body. Yo! Seeing Wuchen staring at her without blinking, the young girl waved her hand and greeted him. Yo! Seeing this, Dustless was stunned. He also raised his arm to greet her. After being stunned for a few seconds, Dustless suddenly realized that something was wrong and twitched. Yo, my ass. Explain to me clearly. How did you get on my bed, Clea? Dustless's forehead was filled with countless crows. He almost vomited blood. This perfect girl in front of him was his cheating fiancée. Could it be that last night? That's right. It was me last night. You took away my most precious thing indiscriminately. Clea said with hidden bitterness and a trace of hesitation. Thinking of the madness last night, Wuchen's body stiffened. He immediately stole a glance at Clea's perfect body that could reflect the sunlight. His face turned red as he threw her a piece of clothing. Hurry up and put it on. The latter stuck out her tongue at Dustless, then put on the clothes obediently. She looked at the blushing Dustless with a smile and said seriously, I don't mind. Why should a man like you mind? You make it sound so easy. No one would be able to feel at ease about doing this kind of thing with a strange girl. Dustless rolled his eyes and said. You heartless guy. I am your fiancé. Clea glared at Dustless with dissatisfaction and said resentfully, and we are a match made in heaven. Getting me is the same as conquering the whole world. I am not a pretty boy who relies on his face to make a living. Dustless groaned and said with dissatisfaction. He couldn't help but ask curiously, getting you is the same as getting the whole world. What do you mean? You have to promise to take responsibility for me first. Clia's sweet laughter was intoxicating, like the sound of nature. Suddenly, Dustless lowered his head and became silent. He wanted to refuse directly, but when he looked up, he met Clia's watery eyes. She looked a little timid and worried, and her eyes were unusually frightened. He couldn't bear to see her like this. Dustless didn't think that he was a good person, but since he had done it with a woman, taking care of her for life was a must. This was the basic principle of being a man. Although this was an accident, the main reason was Dustless. No problem, you say it. Gritting his teeth, Dustless finally made a decision. Even though Clia was also from Tianlong, Wuchen, who was good at observing people, could still see that her nature was not good. She did not have the overbearing arrogance of the people from Tianlong. After saying that, the girl kissed Dustless's face and then leaned lazily in Dustless's arms. She recalled the past and explained softly, I am one of the ancient weapons that the world has been chasing. Heavenly King. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, before Dustless could be surprised, a cold emerald light suddenly appeared in front of him, trying to tear Dustless apart. It was so sharp that everything in its path exploded. An emerald slash. Is it that guy, Eagle Eye? Dustless frowned and guessed. He then said to Clia, I will listen to your story in the future, but this world will end soon. I will temporarily put you back into the world of Shenwei. No problem. Hearing this, Clia nodded like a little chick. She trusted Dustless a lot. The people of Tianlong have been destroyed by the 5 elder stars. You are the only one I can rely on in this world. Don't worry. I will not let you down. Dustless gave her a comforting look. He was also quite open-minded. To be honest, he was very curious about this woman at first and secretly guessed her origin. He didn't expect her to be the legendary Heavenly King. Maybe it's because she ate some kind of devil fruit, Dustless guessed in his heart. At the same time, he released Shenwei to devour Clia. There were countless cases of humans eating some kind of devil fruit that caused their body to mutate. The former CP9 officer Spandam had a similar weapon in his hand. Boom! Boom! While he was thinking, the huge slash was getting closer and closer, and it was about to swallow Dustless. The sharpness of the slash was enough to easily tear a mountain. You're overestimating yourself. Sitting back on the sofa indifferently, Dustless's eyes rippled. 2 figures hidden in the darkness shot out, blocking in front of Dustless like a shield. Caw caw caw, the 2 of them exerted force at the same time, and a huge fist blasted forward. The powerful fist roared out and directly shattered the oncoming slash. It was 100 Beast Kaido and Doflamingo from the 6 Paths of Pain. After a while, the man with the eagle pupil, Hawkeye my hawk, appeared. Even you betrayed me, Hawkeye. Dustless's tone revealed a touch of emotion and the vicissitudes of life, unusually calm. Hearing this, Hawkeye shook his head and immediately said indifferently, It's not that I betrayed you, but you betrayed me. You violated the original agreement, and now you want to destroy the world. I'm sorry, our previous cooperation ends here, and now we are in a hostile state. Dustless's mouth raised slightly, and he smiled. It seems that you know a lot, but it doesn't matter. Boom. 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 Violent tremors suddenly spread throughout Dressrosa, like a large earthquake of tens of magnitude, and huge cracks appeared on the ground of Dressrosa. It seems to have started. Looking at the trembling sea in the distance, Dustless whispered. Chapter 938. The ground trembled violently, and the earth was constantly being torn apart. The whole of Dressrosa was like a lone boat in a storm, churning at a high frequency. However, the strange thing was that this scene didn't last long. Seeing this, Hawkeye let out a relieved smile, as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He said in a relaxed tone, "Caesar, that guy, he won't use Hades' cannon to attack Dressrosa. Things in the world are often unexpected. I didn't expect that the cowardly brat would embark on the same path as you." Wuchen took a sip of tea indifferently. His expression was even a little lazy and sloppy. Hawkeye frowned, and his face flashed with a haze. He felt that he was underestimated and even ignored. "It's exactly because you said that Caesar is afraid of death, so he will resist you," Hawkeye said bluntly, and immediately raised his voice and said indifferently, "Not only that, he will use Pluto to deal with you. All of this was forced by you." Originally, Hawkeye and Caesar didn't intend to betray, but Dustless betrayed them. "There is no other way." Looking up at the exquisite ceiling, Wuchen sighed and said, "Since ancient times, if you want to succeed, you will always be accompanied by sacrifice. Sacrificing small things to help you achieve greater things. There is nothing inappropriate about this. After all, people are selfish." Boom boom boom, inside the closed palace, the surroundings suddenly collapsed strangely, and the dazzling sunlight shone in. Dustless instinctively raised his arm to block the sunlight. Crack crack crack, at the same time, the ground under Dustless's feet exploded, and there was a crack the size of an arm, and the hot magma overflowed from it. "You have a lot of enemies." Hawkeye's eyes narrowed slightly, and he immediately understood who the initiator was. "Who made me stand on the opposite side of the world?" Dustless said calmly, and he turned a deaf ear to the magma that was slowly swallowing him, and he didn't look at it from beginning to end. "Louis South. For the sake of former colleagues, as long as you give me the blueprint of Pluto, I will spare your life." A kindness strangely drilled out of the magma and condensed his head. Not only that, but a group of Marines also appeared and surrounded Dustless. Of course, there were also groups of pirates. Looking down at Akainu's head made of lava, Dustless not only didn't appreciate it, but also made Akainu angry. "Sakazuki, your nickname is Akainu, but you don't have to learn to be a dog." Looking at the magma overflowing from the cracks in the ground, Dustless joked, "You don't want to be a good person, you have to learn to drill a dog hole. The Marine Fleet Admiral's taste is really heavy. You're courting death." The furious Akainu immediately responded, waving his lava fist as the most ferocious attack. Great fire breath. The huge lava fist came straight at him. Its surface area was even larger than Dustless's entire body. The scorching temperature burned the sky red, and the ground in its path was scorched black. Well, Dustless was indifferent, but there was a dense whistling sound behind him. Looking back leisurely, Dustless's pupils were instantly filled with golden flashes. Yasukani no Magatama. Tens of thousands of light bullets poured down in torrents. The sharpness of the bullets tore through the void in a mighty manner. There was only one target, that is Dustless. Undoubtedly, in this world, except for Dustless, the only person who can use Yasukani no Magatama is Kizaru. It seems that the elites of the Marine are here. Ripples appeared in the void from his palm, and a slender blade appeared out of nowhere. A cold light flashed across the horizon, and the first-generation ghost blade was unsheathed. The blade was wrapped in a demonic red light, and it was as demonic as fresh blood. It emitted rumbling sounds, and it was as if it couldn't wait to drink blood. Facing the oncoming flame fist, the first-generation ghost blade swept out. Puchi! The bloody light easily passed through the lava fist, and suddenly split into two. It was as easy as cutting vegetables. Then he looked back and looked at the large flash of light, and his eyes solidified. This kind of thing, how can it hurt me? Gently lifting his arm, the first-generation ghost blade was filled with a cold light that shattered the sky. After a while, the sky rippled, and a huge red light was thrown out from the tip of the first-generation ghost blade. The speed was so fast that only an afterimage could be seen. However, its power was unparalleled, and even the horizon was faintly distorted. The bloody slash beat the prelude of destruction, and the situation was completely one-sided. The incoming golden flashes were intercepted and immediately annihilated as if they had encountered a natural enemy. The sky that was dyed in gold cleared up once again. Of course, I know that I can't hurt you, so I used that kind of powerful attack to attract your attention. His pupils flashed with golden light, and a tall figure blocked the sky. His face was full of stubble, wearing reading glasses, and of course, his small feet were swallowed by the golden light. Although we used to be colleagues, I still want to ask, have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? Kizaru asked lazily. Well? When the voice fell, a dazzling flash condensed, and Kizaru was immediately surprised to find that Dustless's small feet were also ignited with extremely dense photons. Have you ever been kicked by the speed of light? This sentence should be said by me, Borsellino. Chapter 939. Kizaru was shocked when he saw this. His old face finally couldn't keep calm. His eyes were obviously full of horror. The glittering feet made Kizaru feel a fatal threat, and his hair stood up uncontrollably. The light condensed on his feet reached the limit, and his skin felt incomparable tingling pain. Kizaru chose to make the first move. His body was extremely tall, and he kicked toward Dustless's eyes. Dustless was as calm as stagnant water, and his whole body was terrifyingly calm, like a beast lurking in the dark, making people shudder. Seeing that Dustless didn't dodge or take defensive action, even with Kizaru's temperament, his heart flashed with anger, and the strength of his feet increased by 3 points. Boom! The violent impact spread, setting off a rapid impact explosion. A blazing flame mushroom cloud rose into the sky, and the burning black smoke was up to 100 meters long. The sky was filled with water in an instant, and the danger of suffocation filled the air. This feeling, Kizaru was stunned, and he noticed a strange touch from his calf. He narrowed his eyes, and a bad feeling flashed in his heart. At this moment, in the black smoke, a ray of golden light swept through without warning, followed by unlimited expansion, and all the black smoke was dispelled. Very powerful attack, Borsellino. The smoke receded, revealing the intact Dustless. His body was clean, and even the dust didn't cover it. On the other hand, Kizaru was still at a disadvantage. Looking closely, Kizaru's calf was caught by the left arm covered with hockey. This is courtesy. Lifting his calf, Dustless jumped up and greeted Kizaru's old face. Lightspeed kick. Boom boom boom. Kizaru's body was rampaging, and he was kicked hundreds of meters away by Dustless. He was lying on the ground, and his whole body was burned. Whiz whiz whiz, at the same time, several figures fell from the sky, and the ground was covered with smoke, and the outline was blurred. Revolutionary Army's boss, Durag, Blackbeard Marshal D. Titch, Red Hair Shanks, and, staring at the large group of pirates behind them, Dustless nodded slightly. There were many pirates with a bounty of more than 100 million berries, and this lineup may destroy the world government. Marine Fleet Admiral, Fujitora and Green Ox, An Garp and Sengoku, and Admiral, such a luxurious lineup. The spearhead was only aimed at one person, Dustless. Hand over the Hades design blueprint, and I'll let bygones be bygones, Louis South, Chief Commander Kong said in a loud voice. His tone was so convincing that one could not help but obey. This battle formation is truly terrifying. Wu Chen's eyes spread out and saw countless legendary figures. He pretended to be afraid and smiled. Then, he changed the topic and stared at the stern-looking General Kong. A cunning smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. There is only one Pluton's design, and there are so many of you. Who should I give it to? Taking out Pluton's design, Dustless shook it, and the eyes of the pirates and marines also followed. Even the red-haired Shanks's expression was vaguely greedy and covetous. Obtaining the Pluto design blueprint and obtaining the world was just a matter of time. Who could be relieved of the throne of the World King? What a cunning guy! Garp and Sengoku looked at each other, and the pirates who besieged Dustless changed their eyes. They looked at each other, and from temporary allies, they turned into bad intentions. Ha! Of course, this kind of thing is mine. Blackbeard laughed, and his whole person turned into a gust of wind. An invisible hand condensed in the sky, full of high-density gravity, covered Dustless's Pluton's design. Idiot! Seeing this, Wu-Chen smiled secretly. Not only did he not stop it, but he flicked out the King of Hell's design blueprint, deliberately letting the design blueprint fall into Blackbeard's hands safely. Ha ha ha! Grabbing Pluton's design, as if grabbing the whole world, Blackbeard was about to laugh, but suddenly he was shocked to find that everyone's eyes looking at him had changed. In an instant, he became the target of public criticism. Shoo shoo shoo! How Shikuhaki raged, the earth trembled, the sea churned, the clouds in the sky disappeared, and the original clear sky was torn into a black hole for several kilometers. Whiz whiz whiz, the sword energy was raging, and the awe-inspiring fighting power was infinite. The first person to attack Blackbeard was Red Hair Shanks. Revolutionary Army leader Dorag was no exception. Or perhaps, the big and small pirates swarmed up and all rushed to Blackbeard. You don't move. Be careful that Pluton's design will be taken by others. The marine side has more rules, although they are jealous, they rationally choose to stand by. Dustless quietly looked at Commander Kong, Sengoku, Garp, and others, and suddenly noticed that a few people were missing. Why aren't the Gorisei, 5 Elder Stars, on such an important occasion? Dustless's heart was full of reverie, and the inexplicable disappearance of Gorisei, 5 Elder Stars, was unreasonable. Our marine's task is not only Pluton's design. Akainu saw that Sengoku and Garp, as well as Commander Kong were there, and he suddenly became confident. In addition, there is your head. Chapter 940. Dustless's pupils were dead and somewhat horrifying, able to swallow the human mind. This group of people, the Navy is really shameless. Wu-Chen raised his eyebrows and said indifferently. His eyes fell on the indignant Sengoku and Garp. Dustless's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. Since they can cut off their past relationship, Dustless can do the same. Gravity sword, tiger. An incomparably domineering slash swept over. The power of the slash was so great that it caused people to feel despair. The slash was imbued with the power of gravity, and wherever it went, it left behind a mess. The ground was sliced apart as easily as tofu, leaving behind a fissure that was tens of meters deep. It swept toward Dustless with the momentum of crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. You're just a loser, but you're so arrogant. Dustless naturally wouldn't choose to sit still. Chakra in his body was surging, and a very dangerous wave floated out of Dustless's body. Don't even think about it. Sengoku's body shone brighter than the sun, and his body expanded rapidly, turning into a sacred and solemn Buddha. His palm condensed in impact and aimed at Dustless. Garp and Akainu looked at each other, each showing their magical power. Haki and their respective abilities bloomed with the power to destroy the world. The colorful light was shining, revealing the power to destroy the world. Without exception, the target was Dustless. Boom boom boom. Dustless's location was subjected to countless powerful attacks and was instantly flattened. All the buildings in Dressrosa also turned into nothingness. Even the pirates fighting nearby were involved in it, and their bodies were not left behind. Caw caw caw. A huge roar sounded, and a crack that stretched for countless meters spread rapidly, swallowing the entire Dressrosa, and the island that had been passed down for thousands of years or even longer collapsed in the blink of an eye. Divided into two. Such a powerful attack, Even if he is immortal, Sengoku's voice hasn't fallen yet, and the void condensed a dazzling light, and Dustless's body recovered. Not only that, but it was accompanied by a flash of light that penetrated all things. Yasekani no Magatama. Extremely dense rays of light blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Cold light flickered, far sharper than blade light. Furthermore, they were abnormally hot. There was simply no way to evade the torrential rain of light. Almost half of Dressrosa had been torn to shreds. Leave it to me. Under the perception of observation Haki, the exaggerated attack was detected by Fujitora. The tachi in his hand gently tapped on the ground, and a miraculous scene was instantly staged. The ruined buildings on the ground completely ignored the existence of gravity. They slowly rose into the air and finally floated in midair. Boom boom boom. A lot of smoke and dust splashed in the sky, and the flashes crushed all the ruins. The Marines on the ground were safe and sound and were saved by Fujitora's ability. Since I'm going to wreak havoc, I might as well do it thoroughly. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Dustless's eyes became even colder. His body emitted a golden light, and the incomplete Kansusanu enveloped his body. He stared at the island beneath his feet with contempt in his eyes. Tingai quaking star. In an instant, the clear sky turned incomparably dark. This strange scene stunned everyone, and they all looked up at the sky at the same time. In the depths of the clouds, a huge meteorite about 15 kilometers in diameter slowly fell. Its range covered the entire Dressrosa. Everyone's face was dispirited, and the dead silence was replaced by shock. Jeppo, moonwalk. In the crowd, an untimely laugh resounded through the sky, and then a broad figure rose from the ground. Compared with the meteorite, this person's thin body was obviously not worth mentioning. But no one dared to look down on him, and Dustless was no exception. This old thing. Where is this Jeppo, moonwalk? It can be counted as flying. Dustless's tone was somewhat stunned. The person who rose into the sky and swept toward the super-large meteorite was the marine hero Garp. It was completely like a rocket piercing the sky, not like Jeppo, moonwalk, at all. Boom boom boom. Haoshiku Haki rolled and raged, and for the first time in decades, Garp showed his full strength. Under this monstrous momentum, the falling meteorites in the void strangely stopped for a few seconds, as if they were held by a big hand without substance. Looking around, the earth was dark, as if the whole world was covered with a transparent gauze curtain, dim and dark. Under everyone's surprised gaze, the dark iron fist blasted toward the meteorite that was enough to destroy the world. Caw caw caw. The slowly falling meteorite made a crisp sound, and immediately shattered. With Garp's fist as the center, the thick and ferocious cracks spread endlessly, as thick as dozens of people stacked together. In the blink of an eye, the entire meteorite was eroded. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A large number of fragments also peeled off, and it was as big as a marine battleship. When it hit the fragmented island, it would definitely collapse, but fortunately, it was moved into the sea by Fujitora's ability. It's not broken yet. Garp's rough old face flashed a touch of surprise. Seeing the meteorite struggling at death's door, Garp's other fist whistled up. Boom boom boom. The meteorite that destroyed Dressrosa disappeared and turned into debris all over the sky. The brilliant sun poured down, and the shadow disappeared. The Marines and pirates also breathed a sigh of relief. Just now they had half a foot in hell. You think that's it? It's not that simple. With a sneer on the corner of his mouth, the sky that was not clear for long was dark again, shrouded in despair. Looking up, a meteorite that was no worse than the previous one was coming again. Chapter 941. The island below was torn apart and turned into two halves. All the creatures looked at the exaggerated meteorite with a stunned expression. The atmosphere was dead silent. All the creatures felt that there was a big guillotine on their necks. They thought that they would be able to see the blue sky after clearing the clouds and mist, but they didn't expect to be greeted by another meteorite. Oh. Really, you young people? Hey, now you want us old people to do it, you're getting worse and worse. These words attracted everyone's attention, and they looked for the source of the sound. Everyone's eyes were focused on an old man with a mohawk. His body was wrapped with explosive muscles, and he was even stronger than Garp. The vicissitudes of his face made him appear extremely old. However, his bright and spirited eyes would occasionally reveal an oppressively sharp luster. The world government's commander-in-chief, Sky. This old man's strength has always been a mystery. Now that I can witness his strength with my own eyes, it's pretty good. In the void, Dustless smiled indifferently, looking at the meteorite falling from the sky, his eyes flashed with disapproval. The effect of dealing with the pirates with a bounty of 500 to 600 million was perfect. Dealing with Garp and Sky, these super-dimensional monsters, only served to show off their strength. Whoosh! The afterimage jumped up and rushed straight toward the meteorite falling from the sky. Even because the speed was too exaggerated, Dustless could feel the storm blowing on his face. Without exception, like Garp, his fist was swallowed by the darkness, and he pointed straight to the sky without fear. Boom boom boom. An unprecedented heavy blow blasted on the meteorite, and the powerful force destroyed the sky and the earth. In an instant, the meteorite that covered the sky was smashed, and Sky disappeared from everyone's sight. Bang bang bang, in the space where there was no one, it was like someone was stepping on the air, and there was a rhythmic explosion. But if you look closely, there were no birds or beasts. Full of flaws. The afterimage that disappeared in the blink of an eye couldn't be captured by others, but Dustless's eyes could see everything at a glance. Light speed kick. The flash condensed on the tip of his foot cut through the void and blasted straight ahead. The target was the flickering afterimage. Petty tricks. As he stared at the incoming beam of light, Chief Commander Kong's figure was revealed amidst the afterimages that were moving at an extremely fast speed. He floated in the air for a short period of time in a bizarre manner. His gaze was calm and composed, and there was contempt in his eyes. A pair of arms that were several times thicker than human thighs were swallowed by armament hockey, and the power of the fist was enough to smash an island. Bang! The iron fist punched out, and the high-density flash suddenly burst and scattered in all directions. It was exceptionally easy and simple. General Kong cupped his fists and looked straight at Dustless. His tone was full of confidence. Surrender. You won't be able to escape today. However, just as he finished speaking, Dustless's ghostly voice resounded in Commander Kong's ears. It's not good to be so arrogant at your age. The sky is not suitable for a marine like you. The sea is more suitable for you. After that, Dustless's right fist was also swallowed by the deep darkness, covered with the sharpness of armament hockey, shining brightly, and even the sunlight could be reflected. Then, under everyone's astonishment, it blasted towards Kong's head. Poochie! General Kong, who was hit hard, vomited blood, and his mind was spinning. His mind was blank like a paste, and he instantly lost the ability to fight again. Put ong! There was a loud explosion on the calm sea, and immediately a huge ripple surged, and then a water column of more than 10 meters high was set off. General Kong, who had just been confronting in the sky, evaporated. Needless to say, it was air who was blasted into the sea. You're next, Garp. Looking back indifferently, Dustless stared at Garp, who was using Jeppo, Moonwalk, to occupy the void. He sneered, and countless photons appeared all over his body, and he swooped down with great momentum. The speed of light was too fast for the naked eye to catch. Found him. After a few seconds of silence, Garp's eyes shone with a cold luster. Under the perception of observation hockey, he understood the existence of Dustless, and immediately turned around and punched without hesitation. Boom! The ripples visible to the naked eye spread rapidly, and this unparalleled impact wave covered a range of more than 10 kilometers. If it was on land, it may be a one-time collision that would wipe out Dressrosa. When did this guy's armament hockey reach this level? In mid-air, Dustless and Garp's fists collided. The feeling of soreness and swelling pain from his fist made Garp a little dazed, and it was the first time in decades that he felt this way. Bang bang bang. The dull impact sounded continuously, and the ripples visible to the naked eye repelled out one after another. The sky became a forbidden area, and there were only two figures fiercely confronting each other. Good opportunity. Perceiving that Dustless showed a rare flaw, Garp's fist hit Dustless's right shoulder very craftily, and his power increased dozens of times in an instant. The fish took the bait. Seeing this, Dustless was not surprised, and his eyes went wild. Kamui. Garp's fists also inevitably hit the air when his body turned from nothingness to reality. He, who was completely unaware, instantly became a fat and beautiful lamb in Wu Chen's eyes. While Garp was distracted, a ray of golden light fell from the sky, and the localized Kansusanu's fist hit him. Chapter 942. Without warning, a huge fist fell from the sky. When Garp was hit with all his strength, he woke up from his dream and used armament hockey to defend himself. He suffered a heavy blow and his head was bleeding. Puff! Without exception, Garp also followed the footsteps of Air Commander and was blasted into the deep sea by Dustless. Go and save both of them. Akainu's face was blue and he yelled at the stunned Marines behind him. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, a group of idiots, they don't even have a little bit of eyesight. Next, a light voice filled their ears, and a figure flashed out of the ground. After I end you, this world will set foot on heaven. The line of sight revolved around the remaining high-level Marines, and the pirate side was ignored by Dustless. That group of people only cared about competing for Pluton's design blueprint. Blackbeard was already riddled with holes, and whether he could survive was a problem. Compared with the pirates, the Marines are the real enemy. Let's go together. Retired Fleet Admiral Sengoku, Admiral Tinghu, including the new Admiral Green Bull, and Akainu, everyone looked at each other and rushed to Dustless. Meteor Volcano. With a wave of his hand, it was his strongest move. A huge flaming fist rushed towards Dustless. Everything in front of the magma was burned to ashes. Dustless didn't change his face when he saw this, and his body erupted with a majestic repulsive force. Shinra Tensei. The magma near his feet was easily bounced out. The eyeballs suddenly flashed with a dazzling light. Wu Qin instinctively raised his arm to block his eyes. Taking advantage of this opportunity, an incomparably tyrannical attack came from behind. Puchi. The invisible force fluctuation couldn't be defended. It was like a shock wave without substance. It instantly hit Dustless, and his bones also made a crackling sound of destruction. Dustless was seriously injured. It worked. Sengoku said hopefully, his eager eyes were piercing. Sengoku, is your ability this kind of irresistible impact? It really worked. Glancing back at Sengoku, Dustless was calm, as if nothing had happened. He didn't even cry out in pain, which made Sengoku deeply shocked. Mysterious power gushed out of his body, the broken bones, and the injured viscera were repaired at an extremely fast speed visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths of time, he was completely healed. This exaggerated defensive ability caused everyone's eyes to widen, and a trace of despair inevitably rose in their hearts. What kind of monster is this bastard? Is it possible that he ate hundreds of devil fruits like that pervert Blackbeard? Thinking of Dustless's thousands of abilities, Akainu felt dizzy. As long as we shatter his entire body, he will never be able to recover. A deep shout raised everyone's hope. They looked up and saw that it was Commander Kong and Garp who had crawled out from the deep sea. At this moment, both of them were in a sorry state with blood all over their bodies. That's right, let's attack him together. Akainu also shouted loudly, a one-on-one fight may not work, but if 5 or 6 people come together, their combat power will inevitably increase. It's been a long time, haven't you given up yet? Dustless shook his head and sighed, and immediately looked at the stubborn and unwilling eyes of the Marine's senior officers, and his whole body was covered with a higher density of chakra. Well, I'll let you see my true face. A nearly 200-meter golden giant wearing a Tengu armor appeared in the sky, Kensusuno complete form. The giant's head stood on the ground, and the whole world was covered by his light. His whole body was filled with the smell of ancient decay. His ancient armor had been through hundreds of battles, leaving countless traces, and the 2 long swords at his waist could cut the world. When Kensusuno complete form flashed, the whole world was silent, and the pirates and marines who were fighting with Dressrosa stopped breathing for a moment. Even the coveted Pluto King's design was forgotten. Clang! Under the control of Dustless's mind, Kensusuno complete form was unsheathed, and there was a crisp roar. When the Tachi of Light was completely unsheathed, the remaining creatures of Dressrosa saw the Grim Reaper in a trance. Everyone, give up fighting for the time being, attack Royce South first, he wants to destroy us all. Durag shouted, and his tone carried the power of bewitchment. The pirates and even the marines were all influenced, and all the spearheads were aimed at Dustless. Boom! Caw caw caw, with a height of nearly 200 meters, it was not easy to move, and it immediately became the perfect target. It was surrounded and beaten violently. The exaggerated height was too big a threat, and it became the target of everyone's venting. Although Kensusuno complete form was powerful, it was not invincible. In the face of the relentless bombardment of thousands of strong people, its armor and limbs were constantly smashed. However, the incomplete cracks would be repaired by chakra gushing out of Dustless's body. When there are many ants, they can also shake the world. Dustless in Kensusuno complete form sighed, and immediately, the majestic chakra rushed out, and the 200-meter tall body strangely became taller. Not only that, a large number of irregular golden charms filled Kensusuno's body, and whether it was defense or attack, it was a world of difference from before, and it received a dimensional upgrade. Senjutsu Kensusuno complete form. Sorry, let's part here, I'm tired of playing, let's part here. Dustless said to himself, and then his pupils twisted sharply. Tomb of Samsara Border Prison. Chapter 943. In the invisible world, dozens of figures flew out one after another. Looking closely, it was Dustless's shadows, and the number was beyond previous knowledge. There were 12 of them. It was far more than Madara's 4 shadows. This was reasonable, after all, Dustless's eye power was not comparable to Madara's. The shadows that were usually only used for hand-to-hand combat, at this time, like Dustless's left eye, turned into deep 9-tomo Rinnegan, pulsing with ancient and mysterious brilliance. Especially the 9-tomo hanging, the folds were shining, as gorgeous as gems. Then this group of puppet shadows strangely opened their mouths at the same time, and it was the same word and move. The shadows' left eyes turned sharply, and the substantialized chakra rose more than 200 meters. Kensusuno. The 12 shadows launched Kensusuno at the same time, and the fierce Tengu armor condensed in the void. What was more terrifying was that this majestic and infinite chakra was neither the mature Kensusuno, nor the complete Kensusuno. It was the same Senjutsu Kensusuno as Dustless. The entire sea around Dressrosa, plus Dustless's Kensusuno, gathered a total of 13 Senjutsu Kensusuno. The entire Dressrosa was surrounded, and not even a drop of water could leak out. This group of idiots. Forget it, I'm too lazy to explain. Sometimes ignorance is a kind of precious happiness, and it's not good to let them understand the cruel reality. Really, I must have been a bodhisattva in my previous life. Dustless admired himself, and he was speechless for his kindness and benevolence. Clang, clang, clang. 13 more than 10 meters long luminous tachi appeared in the void, aiming and locking in the direction of Dressrosa. However, the sad pirates and marines were still bombarding Dustless's Kansusanu, and the remaining 12 Kansusanu were not seen. Farewell, everyone. Dustless's face was indifferent, and under the control of his mind, the 13 tachi fell at the same time. Boom boom boom. The Armageddon blade fell, and the two halves of Dressrosa were instantly annihilated, turning into particles that sank into the sea. The entire sea was scarlet red, and countless corpses floated on it. At first glance, almost all of them were missing an arm or a leg. Just like Dressrosa, they had been cruelly dismembered. Some devil fruit users who were lucky enough to survive had only death waiting for them. Cough, 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 the figure covered in blood climbed onto a small floating object. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper, and his body was powerless. Looking closely, this person's stomach had been cut open, and there was a frightening wound on his chest. It was as if his entire body had been split apart. Even so, he survived. Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral Sakazuki, Akainu, he actually survived. Dustless, who was in the sky, removed Kansusanu, stood on the surface of the water, looked at the broken corpses around, smiled slightly, then glanced at Akainu and left. His internal organs had been crushed, and even God couldn't save him. Akagami's body, Dorag's body, Kizara's body, Fujitora's body, Hawkeye's body. Dustless counted the loot and nodded with satisfaction. To some extent, it was a miracle that they could preserve their bodies after being attacked by 13 Senjutsu, Kansusano perfect body. Live on while at death's door. Glancing at Akainu with pity, Dustless began to look for Hancock and others, as well as the whereabouts of Shirahoshi. Later, he would use Infinite Tsukuyomi and Tree World Descent to end this world. This kind of indiscriminate technique, Hancock and Robin will also be affected, and must be stored in the system in advance. Rumble, the Den Den Mushi in his arms suddenly rang. Akainu was stunned, and immediately took out the black Den Den Mushi with a lonely face. Sakazuki. What's the situation? Has Lewis South been killed? With so many high-end forces, he will die. The Gorosei on the other side of the Den Den Mushi laughed. Sorry. The Marine was defeated, all of them were wiped out. Akainu said with guilt, and immediately looked at the bodies floating on the sea, not only us, but the pirates, the Yonko, 4 emperors, and the high-level revolutionary army were all wiped out by Lewis South. He defeated the whole world alone. So only Lewis South is alive. The Gorosei on the other side of the Den Den Mushi said in a low voice. Akainu also heard the subtle change in the Gorosei's voice, and immediately said seriously, yes. Akainu. Your Marine has served the world government for many years, and now the government will help you get revenge on Lewis South. After that, the Gorosei closed the Den Den Mushi. Akainu was left with a blank face. Half an hour later, Dustless finally found the traces of the women and Shirahoshi, and put them into the system, and was about to release Infinite Tsukuyomi. The sea under his feet suddenly trembled. This is. The sky also turned fiery red, Dustless's pupils shrank, and looking as far as he could, the distant sky was burning red, and at the same time, the sea was rolling up monstrous waves. An unprecedented shock spread, not a small town, not an island, but the whole world was rolling like it was about to explode. Chapter 944. Bastard, what's going on? Noticing the abnormality of the whole world, Dustless's face changed rapidly. He clenched his fists and tried to take in the changes of the whole world with his majestic perception. It's not an illusion, nor is it a genjutsu. The whole new world is collapsing. The dormant volcanoes erupted again, the mountains on the seabed began to dislocate, there was a violent vibration, hot magma erupted in the deep sea, and the weather of the new world became lightning and thunder. Islands are constantly sinking and being destroyed, whether it's occupied by pirates or marines, or some unknown deserted islands, they are all sinking rapidly. Disappeared from the map plate. Could it be? His pupils shrank. Dustless suddenly realized that after something big touched the taboo, this kind of shocking scene will happen. His body immediately rushed out like a storm. Staring at the dying figure on the floating object in front of him, he stopped in his tracks. Is this also in your plan? Sakazuki. His feet stopped in the void, looking down at Akainu in front of him. Dustless frowned and asked. This, trying to open his eyes, Akainu said with all his strength, although I am unscrupulous in order to achieve my goals, but not to this extent, this is done by the Gorosei, it has nothing to do with the marine. After that, Akainu closed his eyes forever, and his breathing and heartbeat stopped forever. This guy. Forget it. Looking at Akainu, who died and still defended the marine, Dustless had nothing to say. Although Akainu's thoughts are extreme, he can sacrifice anyone for the so-called justice, but it is undeniable that he sincerely protects the marine, and he has no selfish desires, at least this is the most respectable point. Damn the Gorosei, their ambition is enough to swallow the world, in order to kill me, they are willing to bury the whole world with me. If he didn't guess wrong, the Gorosei did what Z wanted to do, but didn't do it. They used the power rock to detonate 3 places that maintain the balance of the new world, causing the new world to collapse. Well played, not only did you successfully erase all the pirates in the world, even the marines and I were also erased. The 5 of them will be able to sit back and relax and become the new creators. Most of the world's powerhouses were gathered in the new world. If this group of people was destroyed, the world ruled by the 5 elder stars would fall into an unprecedented peace. They would also be called godlike existences by the world. Boom boom boom. The series of explosions continued, affecting a range of hundreds of kilometers. The entire new world was devastated and involved in this explosive feast. Countless islands disappeared, and the terrified people were brutally wiped out. Even when they died, they didn't know what had happened. Humph. I'll come out and deal with the 5 of you later. Observing the new world that was engulfed by explosions and various geological disasters such as volcanic eruptions, super earthquakes, and great tsunamis, Dustless, who was floating in the void, was swallowed up by the vortex and soon disappeared without a sound. Inside the Shinwei world. Although Wu Chen's divine power originated from Obito, the difference between the divine power and the different space was like heaven and earth. Although it couldn't be said to be a paradise in the mortal world, it was still lofty and comfortable. Plop. The sound of falling into the water attracted Dustless's attention, and he followed the source. After a while, Dustless was embarrassed. In the clear lake, the girl was naked. Her snow-white skin and perfect curves were exposed to Dustless's sight. Her long golden hair was dancing, and she was very happy. Looking up, there were 2 strands of cherry red on her breasts. It was perfect and flawless, and the scenery was beautiful. Dustless suppressed his hoarse breath. For a moment, his mouth was dry, and his tongue was dry. An inexplicable flame burned in his heart, and it quickly squeezed Dustless's reason. Cough cough, remembering that he still had important matters to ask, Dustless had to suppress his evil thoughts. He deliberately raised his voice and coughed twice to attract Clia's attention and make his presence known. Noticing Dustless's appearance, Clia was overjoyed, but she still pretended to be dissatisfied and muttered, I thought you forgot about me. Stop talking nonsense and put on your clothes. Dustless waved his hand righteously. His modest and gentlemanly appearance made Clea both angry and amused. When he had taken away her most precious thing, he had given her the impression that he was a hungry wolf that had not eaten for many years. He was incomparably ferocious and wanted to completely suck her dry. Clea pursed her lips and smiled. She came ashore in a natural and unrestrained manner and elegantly dressed herself. This girl is indeed different from the other people of Tianlong. Peeking at Clea's every move, Dustless was quite surprised. After more than 10 years of meticulous service, Dustless's heart had already decayed. Putting on clothes was something that he was not familiar with. Dustless had to do it herself. This was also the reason why Dustless lost himself in the decadent life of the people of Tianlong. Clea put on her clothes so easily and simply. It indirectly showed that she used to do it herself. Practice makes perfect, and she did not need the help of others. You should tell me about your origin, right? Dustless blinked and asked curiously. Clea nodded slightly and immediately sank into her memories. The young girl's tone was full of vicissitudes, giving people the illusion that she was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. To be honest, 800 years ago, I accidentally ate a devil's fruit. Its ability allowed me to evolve all kinds of extreme firearms. Because of its terrifying power, the people gave me a name, Heavenly King. Clea said proudly, with a hint of pride in her tone. Then what is your relationship with the 20 kings who built the world government? Dustless was puzzled. Since her ability was so invincible and she was given the title of God by the world, there was no need to cooperate with the ancestors of the people of Tianlong, which was the 20 kings. There is no invincible devil's fruit, there is always a short time. While I gained great power, there was also a fatal loophole. Some extremely powerful weapons had a limit to the number of times they could be used, and excessive use would cause them to fall into a coma. Fortunately, I have the ability to not die, so the long river of life is just a moment for me. Clea smiled bitterly. If she could really exert her full strength, she would not have been driven out of Mariewa by the 5 elder stars, and she even had to submit to Dustless. That's enough. I'm not interested in knowing about your past. With a wave of his hand, Dustless interrupted directly. He just wanted to know Clea's origin. Nothing else was important. No one wanted to have an unknown person around them. That's it. Clea's face was full of suspicion, and she immediately emphasized, I'm an old monster who has lived for more than 800 years. So what if it's more than 800 years? Dustless asked in amusement. Kagaya is an old monster who has lived for at least 1,000 years. You can just wait here. His body blurred again, passing through thousands of space-time and returning to the real world. Everything had changed, and the whole world was bleak, like the hell of the human world. I wanted to let you go to the Genjutsu world to dream of the Creator, but now it seems that I should forget about it. His right eye turned into the Tensigen. Dustless formed a seal with both hands, and without hesitation, he entered the Tensigen chakra mode, and several green spheres floated behind him. Dustless looked at Mariewa countless miles away, and pointed his sword at the 5 elder stars. Chapter 945. No matter when and where, under which starry sky, there is no shortage of existences in this world who like to seek death. The emerald green light lingered around Dustless's body, and his temperament also underwent a shocking change. Under the Tensigen chakra mode, Dustless became more and more indifferent, and the dead still pupils did not have human emotions. Like a machine, standing at an unprecedented height, full of contempt for all living things in the world, looking at the grasses and trees of the world with a condescending gaze. The sky is so small, and all living things are so unbearable that they can only tremble. Carefully experiencing the chakra fluctuations flowing in his body, Dustless has never felt that life is so worthless. The power to destroy the world with a wave of his hand and create the world with a raise of his hand is indeed intoxicating. If you don't seek death, you won't die. Since you seek death, then you will die. Dustless's cold eyes looked into the distance, and his overbearing eyes ignored the distance. Mariewa, who was countless miles away, could be seen at a glance. The 5 elder stars who were celebrating happily could not escape Dustless's eyes. Go to hell. Several green prayer beads floating behind him wandered in front of Dustless, and then quickly liquefied, turning into a faint light that condensed in Dustless's palm. Golden will reincarnation explosion. The negligible light in his hand was instantly magnified 10 times, 100 times, and even 1,000 times longer. Dustless was thousands of kilometers away from Mariewa, but under the unlimited extension of the light sword, it became close and within reach. The light sword of Doomsday could not accurately hit Mariewa, but it covered the entire red line. Boom! The light swept out and passed through the red line with an unstoppable momentum. It cut through the red line effortlessly, and the majestic red line was cut in half. It was trembling and may be destroyed and flattened at any time. This is the final attack. 5 fingers spread out, condensing a dangerous strength, and the edge faintly shattered the world. Dustless did not aim at Mariewa. After all, the position was thousands of miles away, and he could not pinpoint the specific location. Dustless's target of attack and destruction was always the red line. If the red line is completely shattered and turned into ruins, the 5 elder stars will also be doomed. Bang bang bang. The boundless repulsive force that seemed to cover the entire world erupted, and the red line that was hit directly collapsed. Previously, it had been sliced in half by the tyrannical light sword, and now, it was attacked again by this repulsive force, and the red line that could no longer hold on finally collapsed. The entire red line was in a state of chain reaction, sinking into the bottom of the sea, and Mariewa, who had stood at the top for more than 800 years, also disappeared into the sea. With the support of the moon's repulsive force, the sea also set off a super tsunami that was hundreds of feet high, and it mightily attacked the red line that had already vanished. In the face of this huge disaster that was enough to change the entire world's landscape, the 5 elder stars' methods were exceedingly powerful. Moreover, according to Dustless's point of view, the 5 of them were all ability users. If they fell into the sea, it would be difficult for them to escape even if they grew wings. The next step is the final step. Dustless tapped the surface of the sea with the tip of his foot and immediately floated towards the moon. The emerald radiance on his body quickly retracted and he returned to his normal human appearance. The Rinnegan Sharingan gently rippled, and its eye power crossed thousands of miles and was reflected on the surface of the moon. Dustless whispered softly in the corner of his mouth, and the obscure language was difficult for ordinary people to understand. At this moment, he made a seal with one hand, and his slightly gloomy face outlined a touch of eagerness. He immediately looked directly at the red moon that had turned into the Rinnegan Sharingan and did not hesitate to pull the prelude to the destruction of the world. Infinite Tsukimi. Illuminate the world. As Wu Chen's voice fell, an incomparably dazzling light poured down in torrents, covering the entire planet. Even the animals that were active in the depths of the sea and in the depths of the earth were unable to escape the capture of the flash. After a pause for a few seconds, the pupils of the creatures affected by the infinite Tsukimi turned into the Rinnegan state. Any life in the sea, land, and air is the same. No one can escape the shackles of the light. This white light, which is far more dazzling than the sun, can penetrate the shadow of people. There is one more process left. Dustless in midair swept his eyes as if he could see through the whole world. Finally, his eyes fell on some islands that had not been destroyed, and then he made a seal with both hands. God's tree world descends. The emerald towering tree stretched at the speed of light, and the speed of growth was immeasurable. Just the moment it landed and took root, the tree with strong vitality occupied the entire island. The dense roots grew vigorously, and they were endless with infinite vitality. Finally, they marched to the depths of the sea and continued to grow until they covered the whole planet. Dense small roots grew out of the large torso, wrapping the humans or animals who had been hit by the infinite tsukuyomi like mummies. It slowly sucked the vitality in their bodies until the towering ancient tree bears new fruits. Then everything will stop. It seems that it will take a while. Dustless said helplessly with a frown. At the top of the giant tree, red fruits have been born, but they are only the size of a thumb. Sure enough, it's a ruthless technique, completely using the vitality of all creatures as nourishment. Wu-Chen secretly clicked his tongue. Although his mouth was like this, his heart was calm and magnanimous. Although the method was extremely cruel and bloody, he saw through it. People are selfish, and Dustless will not be kind to the world. In the end, he only has one identity from the beginning to the end. He is a predator from other dimensions. Chapter 946. In the Systems World. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. During this period, the Tree of God had once again borne fruit. Dustless distributed it to the girls in the system. Although he did not know if they could live forever, at least their appearance could be restored to their youth. This world is changing so fast. Under the cool shade of the tree, Wu-Chen looked down at the girls who were laughing and chatting with each other with a gentle gaze. For a moment, he was filled with emotions and murmured to himself. In the past, he was alone, but now he had countless beauties to accompany him. At this point in his life, Dustless had no desires. You need to be whipped. A melodious sound of nature resounded in the ears. The void beside Wu-Chen splashed with ripples, and then a beautiful figure stood out. Her hair was blown by the wind, and her shining eyes were extremely wise. She saw through Dustless's thoughts. The shackles that have been troubling you have disappeared. You feel much more relaxed now, right? Hearing this, Dustless pursed his lips and smiled, nodding in agreement. All along, their lifespan has been my worry. Now that it's finally solved, it's natural for me to feel relaxed. Dustless stretched, and coincidentally met the system Ling-er's unkind eyes. He was speechless. You're a system, yet you have such groundless fears. Forget it, tell me the location of my next world. The system Ling nodded, and then her face froze. She said seriously, that world is a little special. You can only enter as a soul. Soul. Dustless's calm eyes rippled, and he said nervously, soul. Don't tell me you want to seal my strength. Seal his strength? What a joke. He spent half a century to gain his strength, and it was sealed just like that. Dustless was naturally unhappy. I'm not sealing your strength, nor am I suppressing your strength. No one can do that, not even me. The system Ling shook her head, and then said bluntly, your strength is still at its peak, but you'll be entering that world as a soul. I'm not sure what will happen. There's no need to worry about such a small matter. In short, it's fine as long as it doesn't seal my strength. You have to give up something to gain something. Even if there are accidents, it's inevitable. Dustless waved his hand. With his current strength, there was no need for him to be afraid of anyone. As the entire body of the Ten-Tails, he was an absolute existence that could not be killed. Not only his physical body, but also his soul. It's good that you have such awareness. System Ling slowly nodded, then asked in a light voice, do you have anything else to tell me? Explain. Hearing this, the corner of Dustless's mouth twitched. His eyes were full of suspicion and resentment. He looked at System Ling, feeling like it wanted him to leave a will or something. Do it. Recalling his heaven-defying abilities, Dustless felt relieved. Boom boom boom. In the cloudless sky above Soul Society, a huge hole appeared in the void after a loud explosion, which woke up the entire Soul Society. The captains of the Godding 13 quickly rushed over. This situation was usually the rhythm of the Great Void invading Soul Society. The huge hole in the sky was getting bigger and bigger, as if it was going to swallow the entire Soul Society. In the depths of the black hole, there was a frightening energy fluctuation. Bang! A black shadow fell out from within and smashed onto the ground, losing consciousness. Who is he? The captains of the Godding 13 frowned and looked at the young man on the ground in confusion. They had no impression of this young man. Is this a disaster? Lock him up for now. The old man with the crutch ordered. He would not allow anything that could threaten Soul Society to happen. Understood, head captain. My head hurts. The drowsy Dustless gradually opened his eyes. Instinctively, he wanted to rub his eyes, but he could not do it. His limbs were bound, and it was difficult to move his body. Suddenly, he realized that something was wrong, and his pupils dilated several times. What's going on? With a dull look, Dustless was shocked to find that he was tied up by thick iron chains, and there was an executioner with a knife staring at him fiercely. Moving his line of sight forward, there were a few captains in white feather clothing who were curiously sizing up Wu Qin, who was in a daze. You! What do you want? A bad feeling arose in his heart. Dustless looked at the executioner with a gloomy face. He was also wearing a captain's feather, and his expression was extremely ferocious. However, Dustless was tied up with iron chains. This scene. It seemed like they were going to execute him. Disaster, you have hindered the safety of Soul Society. You must be punished. A man with brown skin, purple hair, and goggles said coldly. He was also a captain. What the F***ck? Dustless vomited blood and cursed in his heart. At the same time, his eyes were extremely terrifying, and cold light gathered. It was impossible for him to just wait for death. At the same time, Dustless was very confused. In the past, his transmigration was very stable, but this time, there was a problem. Although the system Ling was usually a little weird, it would never trick him. Since it was not the system, it was obvious that the problem was with Soul Society. Chapter 947. Dustless lowered his head and pondered, trying to figure out this unexpected change. From a transmigrator to a prisoner, even with his vast knowledge, his mind was still in a mess. Boy, do you have any last words? The ferocious voice was filled with sympathy and pity, sizing up Wu Qin with a condescending gaze. A breeze blew over, and the captain's haori fluttered. The black 11 on his back was very conspicuous. Dustless glanced at him and looked away. This guy should be the 10th Kanpachi, Onigami Ieyasu. Dustless's eyes changed rapidly. He thought to himself, ignore him directly. This unlucky guy will be killed by Gingmu Jinba in the future. I'm not a traveler. I used to live in the 65th Street of Rukuin Street. I just accidentally awakened Zanpakuto. His clear eyes fell on Shunsui Kaikura, Jushiro Yukitake, and the others, and finally fell on the gentle face of the 4th Division Captain, Unohana Retsu. In Dustless's impression, these people were the only ones with a conscience. However, as the saying goes, plans can't keep up with changes. Soon, someone came to expose him, and it was Unohana Retsu, who Dustless had a good impression of. She smiled and said, "It's not good to lie. There's no fluctuation of spiritual pressure in your body, and you don't seem to be dead. Your Zanpakuto is also missing, boy." Dustless's face was full of shock. He didn't expect Unohana Retsu to be so smart. He glared at her and quickly thought of a solution. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. This is my Zanpakuto. Ripples splashed in the void, and an ancient Zanpakuto that was much longer than a normal Zanpakuto appeared out of thin air. What a strange Zanpakuto. The captains looked at each other and curiously stared at the Zanpakuto floating in the void. It was the first time they saw such a long Zanpakuto. A bunch of idiots, this is the first generation Onigami. Dustless's face was calm, but he was laughing in his heart. He immediately said, as for why there's no spiritual pressure in my body, the reason is very simple. I was unfortunate to encounter a grand void, and when I fought with them, I exhausted all my spiritual pressure and fainted. Since no one saw it, Dustless could make up whatever he wanted. However, not only did his words not dispel the doubts of the captains, but they also furrowed their brows and looked at Dustless in unison. Seeing his calm and clear eyes without fear, they all looked suspiciously at Ghost Yen Cheng and Sword 8. The 11th Division was responsible for the safety of the Street of Drifting Souls. It was a serious crime for the Great Void to sneak in. Bastard, don't talk nonsense. Ghost Yen Cheng's face turned green, and his eyes were burning. The Zanpakuto was out of its scabbard, revealing a sharp cold light under the refraction of the sun. The tip of the blade swept towards Dustless's throat. Shio! A beautiful figure rushed over and blocked in front of Wu Qin, blocking the saber light that was attacking Wu Qin. Captain Gue Yen Qing, the head captain, will make a decision on this matter. That's right. Hearing this, Wu Qin nodded like a chick pecking rice. He immediately said in a strange tone, he wants to silence me. After I die, there will be no evidence. He can also push all the blame to me. Looking closely, this person was Aizen. At this moment, Aizen was very open. He opened his hands to block the Zanpakuto katana. Captain Katana, don't be impatient. What Zanpakuto said makes sense. The captain will decide. Yukitake Jushiro stood up for Aizen. His words resonated with all the captains, and they all agreed with Aizen's suggestion. This kid deserves to be called the movie king. What a beautiful move. No matter what happens in the end, he'll have a good reputation. Dustless was quite unhappy. He looked at the righteous Aizen with disdain. Aizen used Dustless to gain a good reputation. If he didn't know who Aizen was, Dustless would have been fooled by his gentle appearance. In fact, he was a vicious snake. Katana's face was gloomy, and he stared at Dustless with murderous intent. In the end, he chose to take back his Zanpakuto and asked, Kid, what is your name? My name is Dustless. Dustless chose to forget the surname Uchiha. You said you defeated a Minos Grande. Ghost Yen Cheng's eyes were filled with cunning. He sneered, if you want to prove your innocence, it's easy. The weakest in the Great Void is Jillian. Only the vice captain can deal with him. If you can kill them, it means that your strength is at least at the vice captain level. At this point, Ghost Yen Cheng's 8th swordsman released a spiritual pressure that soared into the sky and pounced on Dustless. I will suppress my power to the vice captain level. If you can defeat me, then what you said is true. Otherwise, everything you said before is bullshit, and I will kill you with my own hands. A sinister laugh filled with killing intent spat out from Ghost Yen Cheng's throat. The meaning was self-evident. This guy, all the captains were unhappy when they heard this, and they were cursing him for being shameless. A captain was a captain, even if he suppressed his power to the vice captain level, he could still defeat the vice captain easily. Captain Katana, you are going too far. Uno Hualai frowned. Her calm tone was filled with anger. Bullying the weak was a disgrace to the Goding 13 and insulting the title of 8th Blade. 8th Blade meant the strongest swordsman in Soul Society. Yen Cheng's actions were the complete opposite. No problem. Staring at the man-eating Ghost Yen Cheng and Saber 8, Dustless's indifferent reply made all the captains look at each other. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.